Hello everyone, I'm very glad that you listened to my story. Please give me a follow and like the video if you enjoyed it. Feel free to comment and provide feedback so I can improve the sound quality. Yes, we invite you to listen to part 5 of the series. Chapter 57, Chapter 57, Chapter 57, so that's how it is. Chapter 57, Chapter 57, so that's how it is. Lady Wen finished the prefix and then began to teach medical knowledge. Ing Bao listened carefully, cross-referencing with the book. This book had never been seen in the market, probably a treasure of the Wen family. Lady Wen explained the first section, then guided the two children through it, followed by asking them to copy it word by word and sentence by sentence to deepen their impressions. After the lesson, Lady Wen asked her daughter, Wen Shu, and Ing Bao to quiz each other as follow-up exercise. She went straight back to her room afterwards. Walking into the inner room, she met her husband's gaze, Wen Yanmin. She turned her head, not wanting to deal with him. Wen Yanmin stepped forward and held onto his wife's sleeve, whispering, "Zhenyang, are you still angry?" Xiao Zhenyang shoved his hand away, coolly saying, "What do I have to be angry about? We're already here. We can't go back, can we?" Wen Yanmin sighed, "Coming here isn't all bad." Xiao Zhenyang sneered, "It sounds nice, but the so-called advantage you're talking about is the apothecary in Luzhou that your great-nephew gave you, right?" When Yanmin rubbed his nose and cleared his throat, "The pharmacy in Luzhou is quite good, it can make quite a bit of silver each year, and it's close to here so we can manage it easily. It was a gesture of kindness from our father, not a gift from Angchuan." Xiao Zhenyang closed her eyes, sat down on the bed, and picked up a medical book. "Zhenyang, when father arranged for us to come here, it wasn't like you thought," Wen Yanmin tried to explain. His second and third brothers refused to come, and the old father had no choice but to let him, the fourth son, bear the burden. But he didn't think it was a burden, he liked the peaceful life in this little mountain village. Xiao Zhenyang did not look at her husband, simply said with indifference, "I know, he wants us to look for some secret medicine, a remedy for lung disease, to save the only child of the central palace. The present emperor's offspring were fragile, with only the empress bearing a son and a daughter. Unfortunately, the royal son is poorly and at a tender age of 9, his disease was beyond cure. Furthermore, the emperor's wife is jealous, while the imperial in-laws are dominant. As the emperor is facing the threat of having no heir, the vassal kings seem to be ready to make a move at any moment." "Hush, lower your voice." When Yanmin looked to the outside, "If you know it, that's good. This matter concerns the rise and fall of the Wen family, the old man is also out of options." Xiao Zhenyang sneered, "Only now you realize there are no options. Were it not for your eldest brother's bootlicking, promising whatever he could, how could the Wen family be dragged into this? When Yanmin's oldest brother worked at the Imperial Medical Bureau, he used to treat nobility exclusively. Somehow, he managed to establish a connection with the Empress's family and promised to cure the Empress's only son. As a result, he's entangled in a tricky situation." When Yanmin kept silent for a moment and then apologized to his wife, "There's no point in complaining anymore. Zhenyang, we are one with the Wen family, in glory and disgrace. Father had us settle here with the intention to preserve us. As for seeking the secret formula, it was nothing but an excuse. In such a desolate little mountain village, sporting a glance, he did not believe there could exist a recluse or an expert. Let alone the secret prescription, he didn't even see a decent village doctor. And the Jiang family, none of the three brothers stood out, and old Mr. Jiang was completely illiterate. He would never believe that such a family could possess any rare prescription." Xiao Zhenyang turned her face away, pulled out her handkerchief to gently wipe her eyes, and said through her sniffles, "I'm not so much complaining as worried about Shushu and Baobao. Should they live their entire life in this small mountain village? Shushu was almost 10 years old and soon it would be the right time to arrange her marriage. However, they currently resided in a small village. How could they find a match for Shushu from an equivalent background now?" When Yanmin massaged his brow while soothing his wife, "If the situation in Beijing calms down and there's no major incident, we may be able to go back. Shushu and Hengyin are still young, it wouldn't matter if we waited a few more years before returning home." Xiao Zhenyang sighed faintly, "One can only hope." After class, Ing Bao sincerely invited Miss Wen to her home. Wen Shu happily agreed, leading her younger brother to visit the Jiang family and to see the golden ear mushroom in her bamboo shed. These are the golden ears we grow at home. They haven't matured yet. Ing Bao pointed to the mulberry rack. When they come of age, I will give you some. Wen Shu was curious, crouching down to get a closer look at the golden item. She exclaimed, "This is the first time I've seen fresh golden ears. They're really beautiful." She couldn't help reaching out to touch them. They were soft and really looked like small ears. After admiring the golden ears, they went to see the deer and chicken in the deer shed. Ing Bao took a dozen eggs from the egg basket and used another basket to collect them for Wen Shu. Our chickens lay a dozen eggs each day. Sister Wen, take some home, they're delicious when boiled. Wen Shu felt a bit embarrassed and wanted to decline, but the enthusiasm of the child was overwhelming. Well, then I'll make some mung bean cakes for you to try when I get home. The friendship between girls often starts with food. For instance, eating snacks together, shopping for treats together, and eating at roadside stalls together. When Hainin was not interested in the girlish chit-chat, he only liked the magnificent deer. He secretly reached out to pat it, and seeing the deer did not resist, he felt a burst of joy. If he could ride on it, he would surely look impressive. A few days ago, when he first saw the little girl riding on that deer, he was utterly amazed. The little boy kept stealing glances at the girl with the braids shaped like goat horns. Alas, he couldn't find the words to speak up. When Hainin drooped his head in disappointment. Perhaps next time, he would give her his 9 linked rings, in exchange for a chance to ride the deer. Yes, that seemed like a good plan. After looking at the chickens, the children ran to Uncle Jiang's pig pen to see the pigs. This spring, Uncle Jiang had bought a healthy black and white sow, intending to find a boar to breed piglets with. It was the first time Wen Shu and her brother had seen a live pig, so they couldn't help but peer over the low wall of the pig pen in fascination. Such a large fat pig, snorting as it sniffed at them, begging for food. Ing Bao ran back to her house and then came back again, bringing a large bundle of shepherd's purse and green vegetables for Wen Shu. "Sister Wen, you feed her." Wen Shu took the greens and began to feed the sow piece by piece. Seeing the sow enjoying the food, Wen Hainin couldn't help himself and began to throw some shepherd's purse over as well. The sow seemed to really like the shepherd's purse and kept nudging Wen Hainin's hand with her snout, urging him to give her more. Wen Hainin chuckled continuously, stood on his tiptoes, leaned down to touch the pig's head, and then pinched its large, floppy ears. So much fun! Before they knew it, the afternoon had passed, and the siblings left reluctantly, carrying a small basket of eggs that Ing Bao had given them. After seeing off the Wen siblings, Ing Bao returned home, full of high spirits. Upon entering the house, she saw her 2 little brothers were standing at the door to her western room, looking at her with a touch of resentment in their eyes. Their lips were downward turned, as if they were about to cry any second. Ing Bao had no choice but to hug her brothers. "What's wrong, Xiaojie, Dao?" Xiaojie's nose was all red, and he was sniffling as he clung onto his sister's neck without saying a word. Dao also leaned against his sister, grabbing her arm and trying to burrow into her embrace. Spring Mother walked over, laughing. "The little ones are feeling neglected. Sister Bao didn't take them out to play after school." Feeling slightly guilty, Ing Bao held her brother's hands and said, "Next time, I'll definitely take both of you out, all right?" Her brothers nodded their heads. Thinking for a moment, Ing Bao reached into her school bag, took out her medical book, and said to Xiaojie and Dao, "I'll read to you." Her 2 brothers immediately ran to fetch their small stools, and sat down in front of their sister, their eyes sparkling like stars. Patting their heads, Ing Bao laughed and said, "Now it's sister reading to you. But in the future, Xiaojie and Dao will read for sister, all right?" Nurturing a child prodigy requires encouragement and guidance from an early age. Get them into the habit of reading, make them love reading, and then they can grow up and become important officials to support themselves. Hee hee. Okay. The 2 little ones said in unison. Chapter 58, Chapter 58, Chapter 58, Ahua is pregnant with my child. Chapter 58, Chapter 58, Ahua is pregnant with my child. Recently, Wen Hainin had been feeling a bit restless, peeking outside during class. His father, Mr. Wen Sailang, had already knocked on the table with his ruler several times, his gaze full of warnings. Wen Hainin had no choice but to suppress his restless thoughts and start studying with a nodding and shaking of his head. Once school was finally over, Wen Hainin snuck to the kitchen, grabbed 2 steamed buns, stuffed them into his bosom, and dashed off to the Jiang family's house. Upon arriving at the yard of Uncle Jiang, he saw that there was no one around, so he silently ran to the pigpen and fed the steamed buns to Ahua in the pigpen over the fence. Yes, he had named the black pig Ahua and even brought her delicious food every day. Because Ahua was pregnant, and the piglets in her belly might be his. This is how it happened. A few days ago, he often fed Ahua with wild vegetables, and she seemed very happy, grunting whenever she saw him coming. Wan Hengyin had never seen such a cute and clever pig, so he often gave her wild vegetables and sometimes brought some steamed buns and cakes for her too. One day, while he was feeding the pig with the mung bean cake his sister had just made, he suddenly noticed someone coming over. It was that annoying bratting Bao and his sister, Wen Shu. Fearful of his sister discovering that he used the mung bean cake she made to feed the pig, Wan Hengyin hastily jumped into the pig pen. He quietly hid behind Ahua, listening to the noise outside. His sister and Ing Bao were chatting non-stop outside, seeming to have endless topics to discuss. Wan Hengyin was frustrated waiting for them to leave so he could get out, but as he waited, he dozed off and unknowingly fell asleep. Wen Shu gave a bag of mung bean cakes to Ing Bao. These are ones I made. I added honey inside, they're really delicious. I originally made a lot, but I don't know why half of them are gone. I think my younger brother took them away. Upon receiving the cakes, Ing Bao smiled. Thank you, Sister Wen. You're very kind. Wen Shu patted Ing Bao on her braids and smiled. You're very good too. Ing Bao. Looking around, she said, I saw my brother headed this way earlier. I thought he would visit the deer at your house, but I don't know where he went off to. Ing Bao stood on her tiptoes and also looked around, but saw no one. He might have gone to find Huzi. Huzi and Wan Hengyin were classmates and were very familiar with each other, sometimes playing together. The two girls chatted for a while before parting ways. By dusk, Danny came to feed the pigs with a bucket of pig feed. Suddenly noticing a boy sleeping beside the mother pig, she was startled and nearly knocked over the pig feed bucket. Upon closer inspection, she realized it was the young master from Master Wen's house. Danny quickly woke him up. How did you end up sleeping here? Were you bitten by a pig? Wan Hengyin rubbed his eyes, and upon seeing that he was lying next to Ahua, he was so scared that he jumped up and rushed out the gate Danny had opened. He ran all the way back home, where he saw his parents and sister about to set out with the servants to find him. Seeing his son, Wen Sailang was so angry that he picked up the ruler to hit him. Xiao Zhenyang didn't stop him, but watched as her husband hit their son several times before asking, Where did you go? Wan Hengyin hung his head and dared not answer. Seeing that her brother was all dirty, Wen Shu quickly said, he must have gone to catch loaches again. Since Xiao Zhenyang saw that her son was still silent, she didn't ask further and let him go inside to change his clothes, letting the matter drop. However, not long after, Wan Hengyin heard from Huzi that Ahua was pregnant. Scared witless, he ran to ask his mother. Mother, if a boy and a girl sleep together, will they get pregnant? Xiao Zhenyang was confused, mistakenly thinking that her son had encountered a challenging medical problem. She answered her son's question earnestly, it could be. Wan Hengyin's small face instantly crumpled up like a steamed bun. He stuttered and asked, Then will a male and a female sleeping together also result in pregnancy? Xiao Zhenyang thought for a moment and nodded, that's also possible. Wan Hengyin was almost in tears as he asked again, Mother, am I male? Xiao Zhenyang laughed, poking her son's forehead, you're a man. Why are you talking about males and females? Only pigs and sheep are referred to as males and females. Wan Hengyin, with a gloomy face, pulled at his mother's sleeve and pressed on, Mother, do I really count as a male? Xiao Zhenyang, left speechless by her son's question, could only reply, Of course, you do. But you shouldn't talk like that. Oh. Wan Hengyin walked away dejectedly to his room, wiping away his tears, and silently made up his mind. He was a man and needed to be brave in accepting responsibility. The unborn creature in Ahua's belly was also his, and he was committed to take responsibility. Having realized this, Wan Hengyin dried his tears and decided to go visit Ahua first. Luckily, his grandmother had cooked some eggs, so he put one in his pocket and ran to the pigsty of the Jiang family to feed Ahua. Afterwards, whenever Wan Hengyin had spare time, he would bring some tasty food for Ahua to boost its nutrition for the baby. By the time it was May, Ahua's belly was getting quite big. Wan Hengyin felt very pleased and was more determined to take good care of it and its unborn. PIB-1L. On Dragon Boat Festival in May, the sun was fierce. The golden sprouts that the Jiang brothers had planted at their new house on the south slope could finally be harvested. This time, the third Jiang brother had planted 400 sprouts, the eldest and second Jiang brothers each planted 300, and Old Man Jiang also planted 100. During the harvest, many people from the village came to watch. They were curious about how the Jiang family harvested, dried, and then put it into the kiln for further drying. Even the clan leader Chen and Chen Suanjing together with the master visited specifically for half a day. Third brother, I heard that you discovered this. Could you tell us how to cultivate it? Although clan leader Chen was not short on money or food, strictly speaking, he wouldn't be considered wealthy. His sons lived together without having split the family, and there were always disputes happening every day. On top of that, his youngest son had been enlisted in the army, and it felt like the whole family had suddenly lost its structure, each hiding their own thoughts. The fourth branch was having the hardest time at the moment. It wasn't easy for the young daughter-in-law to take care of a young child alone, so he wanted to find her a way to make more money to make up for what they lacked due to the absence of his youngest son. Jiang Sanlang smiled, there's really not much to say. As you can see, this is not easy to manage. It needs watering every day to keep it moist, but the water can't get on the mushrooms, or else they will rot. The shed also needs to be ventilated to let sunlight in, otherwise the golden mushroom will change color. He had also learned this through several trials and errors. Last time, because he had not noticed these details, the golden mushrooms were almost ruined. Clan leader Chen stroked his beard, nodded, and asked, Third brother, can I buy some seeds from you? Ah, it's not easy for my son Juju's wife to care of a young child alone, so I'm thinking. No problem, agreed Jiang Sanlang readily, but I have limited spores and can't give you too many. Several villagers had already ordered mushroom seeds from him, and squeezing out 50 sprouts for clan leader Chen was the best he could do. Give as many as you can. It won't be easy for Juju's wife to manage this alone, and she probably can't handle too many anyway. The clan leader, seeing that Jiang Sanlang had agreed, was quite pleased. Third brother, calculate how much it will cost for the seeds and I'll give the money to you later. Jiang Sanlang calculated in his mind and said, 50 golden mushrooms, you just give me 500 coins. The reason why he asked for 10 coins a sprout was after much consideration. Because after they bought the seeds, they would certainly call him over for guidance from time to time, and if they encountered any problem, he would inevitably need to worry about it. This back and forth would take a lot of his effort. Chapter 59, Chapter 59, Chapter 59, There are premium products in Golden Year 1. Chapter 59, Chapter 59, There are premium products in Golden Year 1. Once the golden mushrooms were harvested, they needed to be spread out to dry. Previously, Ingbao had also planted some next to the old house, not many, just about 100, plus another 100 of Schwer. Both of these 200 variations were grown from mushroom spores of golden mushrooms and Schwer. They were watered with a blend of a small amount of Wudingzi and pond water, so they grew very well. After Ingbao harvested them, she spread them out to dry and obtained more than 4 caddies of dried golden mushrooms and 4 caddies of Schwer. She didn't plan to sell all of these dry mushrooms but gifted half a caddy of golden mushrooms and half a caddy of Schwer to grandfather and grandmother for them to stew and eat. She also gave half a caddy of golden mushrooms to sister one. She kept less than a caddy for herself, and gave the rest to her father, telling him that these were premium golden mushrooms and should not be sold for less than 10 taels of silver per caddy. The Schwer mushrooms were also premium quality and should not be sold for less than a tael of silver per caddy. Jiang Sanlang nodded in agreement. Following that, the 3 brothers carried the golden mushrooms to the county town to sell them to Zhou Mao at the Furifeng Trading Company. When Zhou Mao saw that the 3 brothers had brought more golden mushrooms, he immediately ordered his servant to serve tea and the young shopkeeper to bring the steelyard weight and weigh the mushrooms. This time, there were 28 caddies of golden mushrooms in total. Of these, 15 caddies belonged to Jiang Sanlang. Jiang Erlang and Jiang Dalong each had 10 caddies, and the old man Jiang had the least, just 3 caddies. After weighing the golden mushrooms, Zhou Mao noticed that there were still 2 carrying baskets on the donkey cart that hadn't been brought over, and couldn't help but ask, Sanlang, what's this? He suspected that Jiang Sanlang had started doing business with other merchants. Jiang Sanlang calmly replied, these are the premium products from our family. They cannot be sold for less than 10 taels per caddy. What? Zhou Mao was somewhat displeased. Are you trying to jack up the price? Jiang Sanlang shook his head. If I wanted to jack up the price, I wouldn't have sold the other ones to you. These really are premium products. Zhou Mao looked at Jiang Sanlang with suspicion. What premium products? You better explain quickly. Although Jiang Sanlang didn't understand why his little girl insisted on treating these golden mushrooms as premium products, since she said so, there must be a reason. So, he said, premium products, of course, have value. I can't explain it well. But if Steward Zhou thinks it's too expensive, it doesn't matter. I can take them to another place. Dr. Li told me that he wanted all of these. In fact, Dr. Li hadn't said anything like this to him. Most likely he hadn't even used up the several caddies from last year. Even if he had used them up, Jiang Sanlang wouldn't have gone back to him anyway because he had been upset about the matter with Old Man One. Zhou Mao frowned, clicked his teeth, and slapped the table. All right, I'll take these first. If I find out you have been playing tricks, Zhou will chase you back to your old home and demand an explanation. Having said that, he asked the young shopkeeper to come over and weigh the golden mushrooms and shuer. 3 caddies of premium golden mushrooms, 4 caddies of premium shuer, for a total of 34 taels of silver. Jiang Dalong and Jiang Erlang looked at each other. When did their third brother come up with a premium product? The money made from these few caddies of premium products was unexpectedly more than their own 10 caddies. Zhou Mao was actually a little annoyed in his heart, but he had no choice but to accept these so-called premium products. Jiang Sanlang, this little guy, seemed honest and straightforward, but in reality, he was very clever. If he let his golden mushrooms fall into the hands of others, he would definitely lose out. Especially the head steward of the trading company, Zhao Kuan, that old fox was a crafty character and had always been coveting the supply of golden mushrooms. Fortunately, Jiang Sanlang only recognized him, and the amount of supply each time was not large, which didn't give the old fox an opportunity. Humph, later he would cook some and compare them. If Jiang Sanlang were to try to deceive him, he would definitely make him suffer. After getting their silver coins, the Jiang brothers returned home cheerfully. Jiang Dalong said, Sanlang, we might as well put our money together and buy a donkey cart. We can't keep borrowing one from Uncle Chen, it's really not right. Jiang Sanlang was also considering this. It was truly inconvenient not to have your own cart. In the future, they would often travel to the county town, and it was indeed too inconvenient to always borrow someone else's cart. Let's go to the mule horse market and take a look. Okay, let's go to the mule horse market. Anyway, the money we have together is enough to buy a donkey cart. And thus, the 3 brothers headed towards the mule horse market. Upon asking the price, a sturdy green mule cost over 30 taels of silver. Horses were even more expensive, costing 4 to 10 taels. Even a donkey cost more than 20 taels. This didn't include the cart itself. A new one also cost over 10 taels. The 3 brothers sighed, but still bit the bullet and bought a mule, but couldn't afford to buy the cart. They could ask someone to build a cart when they got back, which would save quite a bit of money. There was a person in their town who built carts. If they brought their own good wood, the labor cost would only be 3 or 4 taels. Let's not discuss how cheerful the 3 brothers were when they led the mule home. Let's talk about Zhou Mao instead. As soon as the 3 Jiang brothers left, he called his servant boys to cook some golden mushrooms, a little bit of both types. After they were cooked, he first tasted the premium golden mushroom soup, finding it extremely fragrant, indeed different from common golden mushrooms. Zhou Mao thought for a while, then took a sip of the common golden mushroom soup, smacking his lips and shaking his head. It does seem to be somewhat different. At this time, the head steward, Zhao Kuan, walked over, saw that there were 2 bowls of golden mushroom soup on his table and laughed. Well, have you started using them yourself? Zhou Mao secretly rolled his eyes and laughed. Just tasted some. We just received some premium golden mushrooms, so naturally had to see if they were worth it. Zhao Kuan lifted his robe and sat down, reaching out to bring a bowl to his nose. Isn't this stuff all the same? What's the difference between premium and non-premium? Zhou Mao saw him taking the bowl of premium golden mushroom soup and immediately took it back, laughing. I've eaten from this bowl, but taste the other one. Zhao Kuan didn't suspect a thing, picked up the other bowl, stirred it with a spoon, and began to eat by himself. This stuff was precious. Even as the head manager of a trading company, he couldn't afford to buy it for consumption. Now that there was a free supply, it would be a waste not to eat it. Zhou Mao also picked up a bowl, stroked his increasingly sparse forehead, picked up a spoon, and started drinking spoonful by spoonful. Don't mention it, after drinking the premium golden mushroom soup, he felt an incredible sense of comfort throughout his body, and even his hair seemed to be more energetic. After the head steward left, Zhou Mao instructed his young shopkeeper. Record all these in the book. The premium ones are bought for 11 taels per caddy, and the ordinary ones are still the same as before, bought for 3.5 taels per caddy. Yes. The young shopkeeper was Zhou Mao's nephew. He was learning the ropes and had a lot of trust with Zhou Mao. While the young shopkeeper was recording, he secretly asked, "Uncle, this premium golden mushroom is so expensive, how much should our trading company sell it for per caddy?" Zhou Mao picked up the teacup and skimmed off the froth, laughing, "Naturally we need to increase the price. When goods are scarce, the price goes up. A caddy of premium product can be sold for about 5 taels of silver. There are plenty of rich people in Prefecture City. This little thing is nothing to them." The young shopkeeper was astonished, and secretly looked at the stew pot. There were still some leftovers. When his uncle went out, he also wanted to taste what something that was several dozen taels a caddy tasted like. Zhou Mao sat there sipping his tea with his legs crossed, and suddenly stood up. The young shopkeeper was overjoyed, waiting for his uncle to go out. However, Zhou Mao leisurely walked over to the small table, picked up the stew pot and looked at it, then carried it outside. The young shopkeeper. Did uncle not eat enough? Or did he want to wash the pot himself? Chapter 60, Chapter 60, Chapter 60, Brother is missing. Chapter 60, Chapter 60, Brother is missing. Jiang Sanlang and his brothers invited someone to make a cart for their mule the day after they returned home. From then on, the Jiang family also had a mule cart. However, not long after, Sun Liqing heard about it and came to collect the cart and horse tax. He also told them that from now on they would have to pay taxes every year, combined with the summer and autumn taxes. At the same time, Ing Bao received the 34 silver ingots his father brought back. He was so happy that he put most of the silver ingots in his treasure cave whenever he had the chance. After that, she planted 100 premium golden ears and 100 snow ears, and then gave some of the remaining premium spore strains to her father, eldest uncle, and second uncle, and her grandfather also got some. For the premium strains she gave away, without the mixed liquid for cultivation, they probably wouldn't equal those she cultivated herself, but they should be pretty good as sub-premium products. Third brother, are these really premium? Jiang Delang was still a bit confused. When did you cultivate these? Jiang Sanlang scratched his nose. Last time, bring it back to try planting. Whether it can be planted or not depends on the situation. He didn't dare to guarantee that he could cultivate premium products, because that was what his little girl told him. Jiang Laohan glared at his eldest son. Just plant it if you're told to. Why so much nonsense? Jiang Delang took the spores with a smile, carefully separating them onto the mulberry wood. This stuff was worth a lot of money. One could compete with 3 ordinary ones, and there were not many, so they had to be carefully taken care of. Jiang Laohan also received 50 premiums, happily taking care of them without asking his grandchildren for help. Now his eldest grandson, Jiang Cheng, also planted dozens of them, but they weren't premium. The eldest grandson was 15 this year and was about to marry, but he couldn't do it without money. A few days later, after planting the golden ears ended, Jiang Sanlang took advantage of this time when the wheat was not collected, and invited the villagers to dig a water pool on South Slope. The water pool is too small and shallow to store much water, and Jiang Sanlang has planted a lot of fruit trees and cotton on South Slope, which requires a lot of water for irrigation. So they must take this opportunity to enlarge and deepen the water pool to store more rainwater. I say, third brother, why is your family building a house on South Slope? A villager asked. This question has been asked by many people, and Jiang Sanlang always gives the same answer. Chuanha River floods every year. What if a big flood one day washes the house away? Then we'll have worked so hard for nothing. A villager didn't believe it and laughed. There hasn't been a big flood for so many years. Only someone timid like you would be scared about such things. Believe it or not, it's up to you. Jiang Sanlang didn't want to waste his breath arguing. At the side, Li Eryong heard this and turned his head to his big brother and said, "Brother, some of our permanent fields are on the hillside. We might as well build a house here too. We can't build a brick house, but we should be able to build a grass house." Li Eryong deeply trusts Jiang Sanlang, because Sanlang made a lot of money last year, and now he is leading his two brothers to plant golden ears. Sanlang has such good luck, so whatever he says surely makes sense. Li Dayong shook his head. "Let's wait and see. Building a house is a big matter. Not only does the family's money not come together, but there's also the attached sentiment of the old place. Who could bear to leave the place where they have lived for so many years and run to another place to build a house? And this place was too remote, which was simply unacceptable." Li Eryong was a bit frustrated. He hadn't separated from his elder brother. For such a big matter as building a house, both brothers had to agree. Otherwise, when he makes some money by planting golden ears, he'll build a thatched house on his permanent field first. In case a big flood really happens one day, he can take his wife and children to get away. Li Eryong's suggestion didn't get his eldest brother's approval, but caught the attention of Wang Ku, who was also digging together. He also agreed with Jiang Sanlang's words. Chuanha River may flood every 2 or 3 years, although not severely. It's a trouble. What if there was a massive flood one day? Would his family not be completely doomed then? Wang Ku's house was not far from the Chuanha River. Every summer when a heavy rain occurred, his house would flood. If he had the money, he would have wanted to move long ago. Wang Ku looked at the large tile house of the Jiang brothers, gritted his teeth, and ran to Jiang Sanlang to ask, "Sanlang, can I learn to grow genier mushrooms with you?" Jiang Sanlang wiped the sweat from his forehead and nodded, "Sure, but I've given away all the mushroom spawns. If you want some, I can share some with you in a month." Upon hearing this, Wang Ku jumped up excitedly and quickly said, "Okay. I'm relieved knowing you're considering me. Sanlang, what if I help you with your work in the future? It's also a good opportunity for me to learn how to grow and maintain the plants, so I'll know how to do it when I get the spawn." Jiang Sanlang laughed, "Sure. Why not take advantage of available free labor?" They were indeed too busy at home, and he had been considering hiring some help. Wang Ku laughed happily and dug with more enthusiasm. The pond was dug for over 10 days and was starting to take shape. During this period, there happened to be a heavy rain, which filled the pond halfway. The pond could no longer be called a pond, it should be referred to as a reservoir. Jiang Sanlang planted some lotus in the reservoir, guessing that they could have fresh lotus roots next year. Bao also took the opportunity to plant a large area of water chestnuts by the reservoir and instructed her second cousin to care for them properly. When the water chestnuts grew, they could sell them in town. Jiang Quan was not unhappy about this and took time every day to check on the water chestnut sprouts. Then the wheat harvest began. The school closed for holiday, and Madame Wen also gave Bao and her friends time off for the harvest. Afterward, Bao stayed home to look after her younger brothers while making lunch, which she would then bring to the fields for her working parents. One day, Bao cut a couple of handfuls of Chinese chives and chopped down a big Chinese cabbage. A tofu seller passed by in the morning, so she traded some soybeans for a large piece of tofu. After washing and chopping the vegetables, Bao rinsed the rice and started boiling it, arranging firewood in the stove and letting it burn slowly. She placed a stool next to the cooking platform, stood on it and first wok-fried Chinese chive with eggs, then stewed tofu with Chinese cabbage, and boiled a big pot of water chestnuts. She decanted the water chestnut water into a water jar to later take to the field to quench her parents' thirst. Once the rice was cooked, she filled half of it into a clay pot, left the rest in a rice basket to cool, turned up the heat to make crispy rice at the bottom of the pot nice and golden, scooped it out, and put it on the table. Her hungry little brothers were eagerly waiting at the table. Bao handed them a few peeled boiled water chestnuts and some crispy rice for them to nibble on. Xiaojie and Xiaowu were eating the crispy rice, taking bites of water chestnuts, laughing and playing, chasing each other in the yard. Bao put out the stove fire, packed up the food, and prepared to take her two younger brothers to bring lunch to their parents. Yu was already saddled up and standing in the yard, waiting for her young master to arrive. "Xiaojie. Dou. Come over here quickly, we're going to deliver the lunch." Bao stood in the yard, holding two large clay pots, and shouted, "Hurry up, come on, let's ride the deer." After waiting for a moment, Xiaojie and Dao still hadn't come over. Ing Bao had no choice but to lock the house door first and led Yu out of the yard. However, there were still no signs of her two younger brothers outside. Ing Bao immediately became alert, put the clay pots by the door, stepped on the stone steps by the door, and climbed onto the deer's back. The young deer swiftly began to run. Ing Bao looked in two directions but didn't see them, so she immediately had Yu change direction. On the road, she met Wen Hengyin and immediately asked him, "Have you seen my two younger brothers?" Wen Hengyin nodded. "I think I saw them a while ago." A woman was holding them. Ing Bao's heart pounded as she urged Yu to hurry in the direction Wen Hengyin pointed. Chapter 61, Chapter 61, Chapter 61, Life-Saving Gourd. Chapter 61, Chapter 61, Life-Saving Gourd. Wen Hengyin also sensed something was wrong, chasing frantically behind the deer. In the busy farming season, there weren't many people in the village. People were either in the fields harvesting wheat or preparing meals at home to be delivered to the fields. Yu galloped swiftly, and soon saw a woman holding Xiaojie and Xiaowu, hurrying ahead in haste. Xiaojie and Dao were obviously not happy, struggling and crying desperately. "Stop!" Ing Bao shouted, urging Yu to move faster. The woman looked back, immediately dropped the more troublesome Xiaowu, and ran away holding Xiaojie. Ing Bao reached Xiaowu and glanced back to see Wen Henzven trailing far behind. "Wen Hengyin, please take care of my brother," she yelled, before pushing the deer to chase after the woman. Wen Hengyin roughly understood the situation. He ran over to Xiaowu and picked up the crying child, looking in the direction where Ing Bao had disappeared. He knew he couldn't catch up, so he turned around and started running back. Sigh, he was just feeding Ahua. He never thought he would encounter a child thief. He had to quickly find an adult to rescue Ing Bao and her brother. Holding Xiaowu, he ran all the way, gasping heavily, when he saw a villager. He immediately shouted, "Auntie! Someone is stealing a child, go to the Jiang family to call for help." The person was Wang Ke's wife, who was preparing to deliver food to the field. Hearing these words, she immediately headed to the Jiang family, running and shouting, "Help! Someone is stealing children." Ing Bao chased all the way to the Chuanha River, and just as she was about to catch up, the woman turned and coldly laughed, forcefully throwing the child in her hand. Xiaojie. Ing Bao's eyes were bloodshot. She had no time to tangle with the woman, following Xiaojie downstream. Because it had rained recently, the river flowed rapidly, taking Xiaojie far away in a flash. Ing Bao urged Yu to chase downstream, watching Xiaojie's red coat floating up and down in the water, her mind buzzing, but her heart was unusually clear. No. She must get ahead of the current and stop Xiaojie. If they continued to chase this way, a wave could easily sink him to the riverbed. Ing Bao slapped Yu fiercely, urging it to run faster. When she had passed Xiaojie, she jumped off the deer's back, ran to the riverside, and jumped in disregarding the height difference. As she fell into the water, Ing Bao released a gourd vine linked with two large gourds. Upon entering the water, she unconsciously held her breath and the small body was pulled out of the water by the gourd vine. She grabbed the gourd vine with one hand and wrapped it around herself, swimming with all her might towards Xiaojie. In her past life, she knew how to dog paddle, and she hadn't forgotten it now. Finally, she managed to catch him. Ing Bao held Xiaojie tightly, letting his head rest on the thin waist of the gourd. She wanted to have Xiaojie ride on the thin waist of the gourd, but the large gourd rolled in the water and couldn't carry a person. And she couldn't control the floating gourd, only watching herself and her brother drifting downstream. It was over, she and her brother couldn't make it to the shore. Looking back, she saw Yu chasing after them, non-stop. In the water, Ing Bao holding her brother was being carried further and further away by the gourd, and soon she couldn't see Yu clearly. The chest of Xiaojie in her arms was rising and falling with breath, his eyes tightly closed, not knowing if he was asleep. Ing Bao felt slightly relieved. With one hand holding him and one hand grabbing tightly onto the gourd, she didn't let herself and her brother sink into the water. She didn't know how long they had been drifting for. The surface of the water began to widen and the current slowed down. Catching her breath, Ing Bao kicked her legs hard and swam towards the shore. After struggling for a long time, Ing Bao, exhausted as she was, finally drifted to the shallow bank. After consuming a handful of wooding sure, she felt a slight recovery in her powers and managed to drag her brother to the shore. The two large gourds also got entangled in the weeds on the bank, not drifting away. She turned him over to drain the water from his lungs, removed his wet clothes, fetched a thicker garment from the cave dwelling, and wrapped her brother in it. Then she fed him a bit of woodingshire juice, and only then did she collapse on the ground herself, gazing absently at the blue sky. After an unknown length of time, Yu ran over, bumping her with its head, trying to rouse her to get up. But she could not move, not even able to lift a hand. At that moment, someone ran over in their direction. Ing Bao took a glance, but couldn't clearly see who it was. Bao Bao. Jiang Sanlang ran over like a madman, seeing the two children lying silently on the beach. His vision darkened, and he almost fainted. Bao Bao. Xiaojie. Jiang Sanlang knelt on the gravel, holding Ing Bao in one arm and his son Xiaojie in the other, encircling them tightly into his chest, with unstoppable tears cascading down. A man in his 30s, choked up to the point of speechlessness, touched his son's still warm body in the rise and fall of his chest, reassured somewhat. He then checked the breath from his daughter's nose. There was breath on his fingers too, settling a bit more of his anxiety. However, he couldn't stabilize his fluctuating emotions, bursting into loud, heart-rending sobs. A few villagers arrived, saw Jiang Sanlang in this state, and, assuming that both children were gone, immediately felt sorrow and regret. They didn't even notice the two strange huge gourds nearby. At this point, Jiang Erlang also ran over, picked up his nephew from the arms of his sobbing younger brother, discovering that the boy still had breath. He immediately started pushing and pressing the water out him. Xiaojie woke up from the pressing, opened his eyes, and cried loudly. "Ah, the child is crying, it's okay, it's okay." Everyone was shocked and delightfully exclaimed, "God bless." Ing Bao also recovered a little. She raised her hand and pointed to the villagers who were about to move. "You, don't move. Those gourds are mine." A few villagers had already noticed the gourds by the shore and were going to take a look, but after hearing this, they laughed. "We wouldn't move them, we just wanted to help you pull them up." "Wow, what kind of gourds are these? They're so huge." "These gourds must be what saved the children." "Ah, amazing, the fairy child is indeed extraordinary, even summoned such magical gourds." Ing Bao. Could she say that these people were too smart for her? It was terrifying. They were about to expose all her secrets. After this, the villagers carried the two large gourds, Jiang Sanlang carried his daughter, and Jiang Erlang carried his nephew. They quickly returned to the village. At this moment, there was a large crowd gathered in front of Jiang Sanlang's house. A woman with her hands bound behind her back sat collapsed on the ground. Jiang Lu, furious, slapped her across the face and pulled her hair back and forth, crying and cursing, "You're damned. What did my children ever do to you? Why did you try to harm them? If anything happens to them, I'll kill you, you beast." The kneeling woman had a bruised face and was bleeding from the corner of her mouth. She chuckled at Jiang's family. "Why should my son die while yours lives well? If it weren't for Jiang Sanlang's pitilessness, how would my son Donkey have been sent to the barracks?" "Nonsense." Jiang Dalong retorted in anger, "Your son, Donkey, would have still been conscripted even if he was home. Only someone sick in the head would blame my family." The clan leader, Chen, and Chen Sanyo too arrived, pushing their way through the crowd in front of the woman, biting their teeth in fury. "You're a wicked woman. You've utterly disgraced our Chen family." The clan leader then turned to Chen Sanyo. "Later send her to Lijing, have him judge her as he sees fit. Who will go to call her family? Such an evil woman, she's not wanted in our Chen family. Where is Chen Ergu? Call him here. If he is an accomplice, send him to the authorities as well. If he knew nothing, let him write a divorce letter, and divorce this ignorant and foolish woman first." Chapter 62, Chapter 62, Chapter 62, There is a difference in Golden Ears 1. Chapter 62, Chapter 62, There is a difference in Golden Ears 1. Upon hearing the clan leader suggesting that her husband should divorce her, the woman immediately slumped to the ground and started crying and wailing inconsolably. At this moment, the crowd was in an uproar. "Jiang Sanlang is back. The child has been saved. It's all right now, both children are safe." The crowd parted to let the Jiang Sanlang brothers through, all eyes on them as they carried the child into the house. Chunyang, who had been brought back to consciousness, collapsed once again in joyous relief upon learning her daughter and son were safe and sound. After the commotion, Chen Ergu's wife was taken into custody. Sun Liqing, the Lijiang, heard the case and signed his name to the instructions, and then she was escorted to the county government to await the county magistrate's judgment. Since Chen Ergu's wife shouldered all the blame, Chen Ergu was still able to continue living in the village. However, Chen Ergu became increasingly silent and emotionless. His gloomy glance made people's hair stand on end. The neighbors on both sides of his house complained about the bad luck he brought. Many even ran to the village leader, demanding a change in his guardianship. But changing guardians turns out to be impossible. In the end, the matter was left unresolved. It took Ing Bao about 10 days of rest at home before she could go back to school. Chun Yang personally sent her daughter to the school gate, and only left after watching her go inside. Wen Shu, guiding Ing Bao to the classroom, said, "It really scared me to death. When your younger brother came back that day and told us what happened, your mother and I were extremely worried. What a wicked woman, to throw your brother into the river. Fortunately, you both are all right." Ing Bao hugged Wen Shu's arm, eyes crinkling in a smile. "My father and grandparents all said, my brother and I have the protection of immortals, we won't be hurt." Fortunately, she had arrived in time. Otherwise, the outcome would have been unbearable to think about. That woman was not just trying to kidnap them, she wanted to drown both her younger brothers to seek revenge on her parents. When she gently patted her head, her voice soft, "Next time, if you encounter danger, you can't take risks like that. You need to find an adult for help. You were lucky this time, but it can't always be that way." "I know." While they were talking, a 6 or 7-year-old girl from another classroom approached timidly. "What are you guys talking about?" Ing Bao's smile vanished instantly. She recognized her at once. It was Qin Zhao, the second daughter of the Han family. "Why is she here?" Ing Bao watched her warily and remained silent. When she replied, "Nothing in particular." Chen Zhao turned to Wen Shu with a gorgeous smile, faintly asking, "Sister Wen Shu, can I play with you guys?" "Sure, but you have to study first," Wen Shu answered kindly. Noticing Ing Bao's coldness towards the girl, Wen Shu told Chen Zhao, "The teacher will be here soon. You should get to your classroom." Chen Zhao obediently agreed, gave Ing Bao a smile, and then ran toward the classroom. Ing Bao's eye twitched involuntarily. She quickly pulled Wen Shu into the classroom. Oh my, she just wanted to rush over and slap her. She knew Qin Zhao was opportunistic, always fawning on those in power and stepping on those beneath her. She had seen it all in her past life. Seeing her trying to please Sister Wen now, Ing Bao really wanted to punch her. Dare to snatch Sister Wen from her? She'll beat her to death. As Lady Wen walked into the classroom, she nodded at Ing Bao and asked kindly, "Ing Bao, are you feeling better?" She and her husband were both impressed that this child dared to jump into the Chuanha River to save her little brother, and succeeded. Even her husband has said that this girl is extraordinarily lucky, with untold opportunities awaiting her in the future. It is said that 2 large gourds happened to drift down the river and miraculously saved both her and her brother. This kind of against the heavens luck is something that even storytellers wouldn't dare to invent. "Thank you for your concern, sir," Ing Bao crisply responded. Lady Wen walked over. "Let me check your pulse." "Okay." Ing Bao extended her hand. Seeing Ing Bao's wrist wrapped in a handkerchief, Lady Wen curiously asked, "Can you take it off?" Ing Bao untied the handkerchief, revealing a red turtle pattern on her wrist. Lady Wen chuckled, "Why is there a turtle?" Ing Bao seriously responded, "Because turtles have long lives." When she glanced at the turtle, then at Ing Bao, unable to suppress a smirk on her lips and turned her body to laugh secretly. Ing Bao looked at her with a wronged face, not understanding the joke. "You're right, the black turtle is a divine beast from ancient times, its lifespan equals the heavens, its body is robust and its strength is boundless, it even carries the celestial pillars." Lady Wen explained earnestly, "The turtle is the descendant of the black turtle, using it as a symbol of longevity is appropriate." After checking the pulse, she let Wen Shu try it out as well, then had Ing Bao check both her and Wen Shu's pulses. She instructed, "You should feel different pulse rhythms daily. Afterward, you can summarize your experiences, observe the person's complexion and body language, ask about their daily lives, so you can understand their subtle differences. Doctors are not omnipotent, even those who call themselves divine doctors, cannot fully understand a patient's physical condition. So you must combine learning with practice, see more people and check more pulses, and combine this with medical scriptures for progress. Everyone's body constitution is different. If you rely solely on books, you will eventually make mistakes. Yes. Ing Bao and Wen Shu stood up in agreement. The lesson soon ended. Lady Wen let the two children go out for a walk to stretch their legs, while she herself returned to her inner chamber. Her husband was also resting in the inner chamber and chuckled when he saw his wife. That little girl really is a gem. Xiao Zhenyang shot him a glance, listening in on student discussions as a teacher is unbecoming. When Yanmin touched his nose, coughing, I wasn't eavesdropping, I was just passing by. Xiao Zhenyang huffed and walked straight to the window, turning to ask her husband, do you really think that golden ear fungus is extraordinary? Last time, Ing Bao gifted them half a kilo of golden ear fungus. She herself had been stewing it daily for her husband to drink. After a few days of this regimen, he unexpectedly claimed that his chronic ailment had improved significantly, and he was sleeping soundly at night. In the past few days, he also took frequent walks by the river and didn't feel tired at all. Indeed, it's extraordinary. When Yanmin rolled up his sleeve and offered his arm to his wife, if you don't believe me, take my pulse. Xiao Zhenyang reached out and checked her husband's pulse, her brow furrowed as she carefully examined. Your pulse does indeed seem much steadier than before. Her husband had been diagnosed with a weak constitution as a child, and it was her father-in-law who had been taking care of him. Although he improved as he grew older, he couldn't get angry or overwork himself. Therefore, he didn't venture out to make a career for himself but simply acted as a doctor in the clan's pharmacy. As a result, he was looked down upon by his brothers, making life difficult for herself and their two children in that household. See, I told you I feel much better. When Yanmin smiled as he retracted his hand, tidying his sleeves, I've already sent the remaining golden ear fungus to father, so he can verify whether it really is effective. Xiao Zhenyang, considering how good the golden ear is, why didn't you buy more from the Jiang family? The amount you've sent won't be enough for more than a few brews. It wouldn't even cover the servants' travel expenses. Do you think I didn't buy it? When Yanmin stood up and took out a packet of dried golden ear fungus from a cabinet and handed it to his wife, this golden ear was bought from Jiang Sanlang, smell it. Xiao Zhenyang took it and sniffed it, not understanding, aren't they all the same? Compare it with this one. When Yanmin took out another piece of golden ear fungus, see if there's any difference. Chapter 63, Chapter 63, Chapter 63, The gourd is a divine object. Chapter 63, Chapter 63, The gourd is a divine object. Xiao Zhenyang took it and sniffed it, sensing a faint, refreshing fragrance. Indeed, it's different, there's a slight difference in the smell. Right. When Yanmin put away the small golden mushroom, this was sent by Ing Bao, it's different from the ones the Jiang family sells. I also bought some from Old Man Jiang, but none of them is as effective as the ones brought by Ing Bao. Xiao Zhenyang was surprised, so you're saying the Jiang family indeed possesses a secret ancestral remedy? Yes. When Yanmin nodded, but they do not use this secret remedy to amass wealth. Xiao Zhenyang contemplated. It seems that my father-in-law's hypothesis was right, and it's a good thing we moved here. But how could she get the golden mushroom again? Thinking of Ing Bao, Xiao Zhenyang couldn't help shaking her head. She really didn't want to be manipulative towards the child. When Yanmin added, if we receive good news from grandfather's eldest brother, you, Shushu, and Bao Bao can return to Yuzhou. Returning to Yuzhou, they will be able to continue enjoying the family resources and lead a life of luxury. Let's cross that bridge when we come to it. Xiao Zhenyang stood up, the prince has been ill for many years, it won't be cured overnight, it's safest for us to stay here obediently. Although the mountain village is poor, most people are reasonable. Her two children have become more cheerful living here, happier than living in that strict household. Even her son, who was never interested in studying, has become more sensible and has even voluntarily started reading books. Now that they have settled down, it wouldn't hurt to stay for a few more years. She could use this time to cultivate her mind and maintain her health, so she wouldn't have to deal with others when she goes back, avoiding unnecessary troubles. You're right. When Yanmin really liked this village. She loved the endless leaves strewn on the ground in autumn and the sight of beautiful flowers everywhere in spring. She hoped to live her life in such a peaceful place without disputes, witnessing all shades of life while watching the falling leaves in autumn and admiring the flowers in spring. Class ended at noon. Yingbao packed her little school bag and waved goodbye to Miss Wen, bounding out of the classroom. As soon as she exited the classroom, she saw Ernie and Huzi waiting for her not far away. Ernie went up to her, held her younger sister's hand and led her brother home. "Yingbao, you didn't know, we have a new student in our class. She is from West Village." Ernie gestured towards a figure in the distance. As soon as she arrived, she kept pestering Wen Hangin with questions, even asked him if he is a rich man from the county town and if he could take her to the county town for a visit. She scared Wen Hangin into avoiding talking to her. Yingbao glanced in the direction indicated by Ernie, only to see Chen Zhao clinging onto Wen Hangin, speaking rapidly. Wen Hangin was visibly irritated. He tried to break free several times but failed. Finally, he gave her a fierce push and dashed away. Chen Zhao staggered, almost falling over. When she turned around, her eyes met Yingbao's. Yingbao turned her head away and said to Ernie, "Ignore her from now on." In her past life, everyone was divided into two categories in Chen Zhao's eyes, those who were useful and those who were not. As long as she felt that someone was valuable, she would do everything to please them. Once they were of no use, she would turn her back, even betray them. Yingbao did not want her brothers and sisters to be targeted by people like this. The best way was to stay away from her and avoid any contact. The three of them continued on their way home. On the way, they ran into several villagers, all greeting Yingbao warmly. "Yingbao, are you just getting off school?" "Yingbao, you're just getting home." "Yingbao, have you eaten yet? Do you want to drop by my house for a meal?" "Yingbao. She's still just a child, there's really no need for such formality." Upon returning home, she heard Chun Yang say, "Bao Bao, someone wants to buy our big gourd. What do you say, should we sell it?" Yingbao, without any hesitation, nodded her head, "Sell." "How much silver is he offering?" Chun Yang replied, "There are two people who want to buy it. One is offering 10 coins, and the other is offering 12. They are both businessmen from the town." Yingbao blinked, "Isn't that a bit too little?" "Oh well, let's not sell then." The offer was much lower than she had anticipated. Aside from the deer, these two large gourds were the most famous things in their home. These objects had appeared at the spot where her siblings nearly drowned and had conveniently saved their lives. Many villagers believed that the gourds were gifts from the immortals. Hence, they revered the gourds as sacred objects. In recent days, several groups of people from other villages have specially come to see the gourds. Of course, every local villager, including children, came to touch the gourds, almost wearing the skin off the two large gourds. Even the newborn babies were held by the adults in their family to rub the gourd, saying that it would pass on the blessings sent by heaven. Later, it became more intense. Every day, when the villagers returned from the fields, the first thing they would do was to sneak over to the Jiang family to touch the gourd before going home with satisfaction. On seeing this, Jiang Sanlang carried one gourd to their new house on the south slope while leaving the other in the old house for everyone to touch. Alas, they had to let the villagers touch it. Even the clan leader, village head, and master, all often intentionally or unintentionally came to touch it before leaving satisfied. If you don't want to sell it, don't. In fact, Chun Yang didn't want to sell it either. After all, this was an oddity, they were not short on money, so why sell? But since the gourds were brought back by her daughter, it was best to ask her opinion first. "Let's eat first," Chun Yang, lifting the bamboo cover, revealed 2 dishes and a soup already prepared on the table. Cabbage with tofu, a dish of sliced salted eggs, a bowl of spinach and egg soup, and a pot of steaming white rice. The 2 younger brothers also came running over, readying the stools for their mother and sister, sitting themselves down, waiting for their mother to serve the rice. "Is Dad not coming home to eat today?" Yingbao asked as she sat down on the stool. While serving food to the children, Chun Yang said, "Your dad has been called away to build a bamboo stand. There are several families in the village who want to plant golden ear fungi, and they have all arranged with your father that once the fungi are available, they can start right away. Alas, our North Mountains mulberry trees are going to be cut down by those people." At this point, every household in the village was quietly going to North Mountain to cut down mulberry trees. It looked like North Mountain was going to be entirely stripped bare. Ing Bao picked up her bowl and took a couple of bites, saying, "Why do they have to use mulberry trees? We can replace them with pottery jars." She had tested it long ago. Even with a pottery bowl, as long as the nutrients were enough, golden ear fungi could still grow. How can pottery jars replace them? Chun Yang was puzzled. Previously, mulberry wood was used because it's dead wood, from which the golden ear fungi could absorb a small amount of nutrients. But now don't we have wheat bran and rice hulls? If we grind these with mulberry wood dust, then steam them in a basket for 2 hours, let them cool and then put them into jars, we can grow golden ear fungi on them. Ing Bao asserted, "We can reuse these several times, isn't that better than cutting fresh mulberry trees?" If the authorities found out that the locals were massively cutting down trees, her family would probably be the first one to get into trouble. Therefore, they must stop the villagers from cutting down the mulberry trees on the North Mountain. Planting mushrooms required dead trees, not fresh ones. Can we really do that? Chun Yang was elated. "I'll tell your father when he's back. By the way, let him order 200 pottery jars too. We will use those to plant golden ear fungi from now on." In the past, they had used mulberry wood as a base out of necessity because they didn't have money and naturally tried to save where they could. But now that they had money, they could afford to buy some jars. It would just cost 4 or 5 coins each. Buying 100 or 2 would only cost a few hundred coins. While they were eating their meal, they suddenly heard someone outside shouting, "Is Jiang Sanlang home?" "Who's that?" Chun Yang put down her bowl and chopsticks to get up and go outside. She saw 2 burly men standing at the courtyard gate. Chun Yang didn't recognize the visitors, so she asked, "What do you need from my husband?" One of the men smiling said, "We've come after hearing rumors and we wanted to see your family's gourd." Chapter 64, Chapter 64, Chapter 64, How is it you? Chapter 64, Chapter 64, How is it you? Chun Yang hesitated, unwilling to open the door. "My husband is not at home, it might not be convenient to let you in." The visitor grinned, "You're Jiang San's wife, right? We're from Jinqiu Cloth Store in Simon Town. We heard that your family has 2 large gourds and we wanted to see them for ourselves. Look, we traveled quite a distance, could you let us have a look?" Ing Bao peered out from behind her mother, tugged at her softly, whispering, "Let them in. Maybe they're big spenders." Chun Yang patted her daughter's head and went forward to open the bamboo gate. The 2 men walked in, giving Chun Yang a slight bow, "Sorry to disturb you." Chun Yang didn't let them inside the house. She brought out the large gourd herself and put it on the stone slab in the middle of the courtyard for them to see. The 2 men circled the gourd in amazement, exchanged a glance, and asked with a smile, "Is this gourd for sale?" Ing Bao answered first, "Of course it's for sale, but if the price isn't right, then we're not selling." Chun Yang nodded, "Several people have wanted to buy this gourd from our house. I wonder how much silver can you offer?" One of them asked back, "How much do you want for it?" Chun Yang was speechless. She didn't really know how much the gourd could sell for. Ing Bao also countered, "So, you'll give us as much as we say." The men choked, then burst into laughter. "This little girl of yours is quite funny." The other man said, "We really would like to buy it, but anything over 30 taels wouldn't be a good deal." Ing Bao grinned, "That's all right. 30 taels it is." She had plenty of these things in her cave, selling one for 30 taels were already a hefty price, she couldn't be too greedy or risk getting struck by lightning. The 2 men were straightforward, taking out 3 silver ingots from their bag and placing them on the small table under the apple tree. "These are 10-tael silver ingots, take a good look." Assuming that farmers didn't recognize silver ingots, he pointed out the characters inside the ingot to Chun Yang. "This is silver made by the Luzhou prefecture, 10 taels." "Got it." Chun Yang nodded, "I see." As the 2 men were lifting the gourd to leave, Ing Bao stopped them, "Take out the seeds first before you go." The men laughed, "This little girl is really sharp, the gourd would be worthless without the seeds, even 10 taels wouldn't be worth it." He quickly stepped out of the yard, placing the gourd carefully on the mule cart. The 2 men jumped onto the cart, whipped the mule, and quickly left the village. Ing Bao chuckled quietly, touching the silver and muttered, "If I hadn't said that, you'd probably think you got a bad deal." Chun Yang, on the other hand, was regretting at the side, "Yes, how could I forget to take out the seeds first? Even a few would suffice." It would be so much better if she could plant some of her own. Ingbao, we still have another large gourd on the south slope, can't we just grow its seeds? Even if that fails, she still had many more in her cave. Correct, correct, correct. Chunyang carried the silver back to the hall, asking her daughter, do you want to keep this cash or should your mom help you keep it? You keep it. She still had more than 40 taels stored in her cave, it was better to let her parents keep the 30 taels. When Jiang Sanner came back that evening and heard that the gourd from their house was sold for 30 taels, he was stunned. Who bought it? It's a cloth store from Simon. Chunyang told her husband everything that happened that day. We should scoop out the seeds from the gourd on the south slope and plant some of them, what do you think? Sure thing. I'll go to the south slope and scoop out the seeds from the gourd tomorrow. Since it was so valuable, why not try to grow some ourselves? If they can grow large gourds, it would be another source of income. But before he could leave the house the next day, the clan leader and the village head came to see him. Sanner, I heard you sold our village's divine gourd. Jiang Sanner. How did his gourd become the village's? Chen Fu, the clan leader, looked heartbroken. Sanner, that was the divine object of our village, how could you just sell it? Ah, what about the other one? You can't sell that one too. He hadn't touched the gourd for a day and he felt sore in his waist, even walking was difficult, and his old cold leg was cramping. Just as Jiang Sanner was about to respond, he heard Chen Sanyo say, Sanner, how about dividing the seeds from the other gourd among the villagers? We're willing to give you money for them. Chen Sanyo knew he and the others couldn't stop Jiang Sanner from selling the gourd, but asking him to leave behind some seeds wasn't too much, right? Jiang Sanner thought for a while and nodded, all right, let's wait until I've scooped out the seeds from the gourd. So, Jiang Sanner went to the south slope, came back carrying the large gourd, made a hole at the top, and after exerting a great effort, finally scooped out the seeds from inside. After cleaning the pulp, he scraped out more than 30 plump seeds. While he was scraping the pulp, a dozen villagers gathered around to watch. Even the clan leader and the village head were sitting on low stools, eagerly watching. There are 28 registered households in Dongchen village, but there are also many families split from those registered and didn't register separately. If they were to count individually, there might be about 40 households in the village. And there were only slightly more than 30 seeds, how could they be divided among every household? Why don't we just divide them according to the registered households? Village head Chinsanyo waved his hand, each household gets one. Jiang Sanner had no objection, but the question of how much to charge became a problem. If they charged too much, the villagers wouldn't be happy, and he'd have a hard time living in the village in the future. After all, the villagers had helped him a lot. For things like building houses and digging ponds, his family didn't pay a dime in labor. They only provided 2 meals a day for the villagers. If paid too little, he might as well give them the seeds for free. They were all fellow villagers, it was just a few seeds. If they didn't grow, at least there wouldn't be blame on him. When Ingbao came home from school, she saw this scene, the courtyard was crowded with people, everyone craning their necks to see what was happening in the middle. She squeezed her way in and saw a handful of gourd seeds on the small table, and a few elderly men were deep in discussion. In the end, Jiang Sanner said, all right, let's set the price at 10 coins per seed. As for whether it can grow or not, it's all down to your luck. He initially wanted to give them away for free, but the clan leader and village head disagreed, so Jiang Sanner set a not high, but not low price for the seeds. 10 coins was not a small sum for the villagers, yet they could still afford it. Everyone was in agreement, even the ever-calculating Wang Earnyang didn't say anything. Even her family could receive a seed, whereas Chen, the village head, who had 3 sons, all living separately because of household division, could only get 1 gourd seed. Even the richest family in the village, Chen family clan, only had 1. You had to understand, these were divine gourd seeds. Without comparisons, there would be no harm done. Wang Earnyang unexpectedly felt a sense of unprecedented relief. Not long after the gourd seeds were distributed, someone else came to buy gourds. Jiang Sanner sold the empty gourd and earned 20 taels. A lot of villagers were onlookers to this event, and their hearts were ignited. They wished they could rush home to plant the gourd seeds right away. But it's Liqiu now, it's not the season to plant gourds, so people could only hold back their eagerness and carefully kept the gourd seeds, hoping for the arrival of the spring in the coming year. It was just after the Zhongyuan festival in July. Jiang Error was preparing to go to the south slope to harvest golden ears. As he opened the gate, he suddenly saw a disheveled woman standing outside. Jiang Error, startled, took a closer look, and his face instantly turned sour. "Why is it you? What are you doing here so early in the morning?" Chapter 65, Chapter 65, Chapter 65, There's no regret medicine in the world 1. Chapter 65, Chapter 65, There's no regret medicine in the world 1. Standing at the door was Jiang Erlang's ex-wife, from the Ling family. Her face was pale and sallow, a faint bruise still on her cheek, tear-brimmed eyes looking at Jiang Erlang. "Erlang, one came to see the children." Jiang Erlang was silent and didn't let her enter. From the Ling family, she stepped forward to grab his sleeve, but he evaded her. Jiang Erlang backed off a few steps and noticed her protruding stomach. Apparently she was pregnant. "You're already married, don't come to my house anymore." Jiang Erlang spoke coldly. "The children are all right. They've gotten used to living without a mother. You being here will just upset them." After divorcing from Jiang Erlang, she remarried to a widower in his 40s in town. Her mother, old lady Chow, received 20 taels of silver as a betrothal gift. This news was known throughout Dongchen village. In a village of this size, any bit of news spreads quickly. Not a thing can be kept hidden once the old ladies start to gossip. Reportedly, the widower runs a pickle stand in town, selling all sorts of pickles, salted vegetables, garlic and others. The business wasn't bad. His previous wife left him with a son and a daughter, but the son died of illness 2 years ago, leaving only a young teenage girl. In theory, life wouldn't be bad for Leng as the wife of the household. So long as she bore him a son and a daughter, the widower would definitely take good care of her. Why she came back now was unclear. Leng family covered her face and started crying. "Erlang, can you really be so heartless? I just miss the children, just let me see them once." At this time, Ernie and Huzi, hearing the commotion, ran out from the house and stood by Jiang Erlang, looking at the woman before them. Huzi hadn't seen his mother in over a year, and he barely recognized her, simply staring at her curiously. Ernie had, however, recognized the woman. Even though her appearance was somewhat unfamiliar, Ernie knew at a glance that this was her mother. Yet Ernie didn't dare to call out to her. She merely gave her a look of pity, not knowing what to do. "Huzi. Ernie. My children." When Ling family saw the 2 children and tried to rush them, she was blocked by Jiang Erlang. "Ling family. Our divorce was clear. I paid you 15 taels of silver and said the children will not be related to you from then on. You inked your handprint on those papers." Jiang Erlang coldly said, "You have seen the children, stop lingering here and return where you belong." Even if her life was not comfortable now, she should go to her mother's house, not seek warmth here. Ling family's eyes blurred with tears, sobbing, "Erlang, I regret it, I really do." At this time, some nosy neighbors holding their bowls came over to watch the scene. Someone ridiculed, "Isn't this Ling family then? But you are already married, why are you back?" Could she be eyeing Jiang Erlang's wealth and want to scoop some money for her younger brother? "Oh my, Ling family, you change faces faster than turning pages in a book, aren't you afraid of burning bridges?" Ignoring the villagers' ridicule, Ling family continued crying, "Erlang, for the sake of us being husband and wife for more than a decade, let me come back." Jiang Erlang became stern and interrupted her words, "Ling family, I urge you to go back, I am about to get married. Even if you regret now, it's too late." The words were just to push off the Ling family. He and the children were living well now. Although life was hard, it was peaceful. He really didn't want to go back to the days of constant pandering. "No. Erlang, how can you marry someone else? I do not agree." Ling family screamed hysterically, throwing herself onto Jiang Erlang. "Erlang, you are mine, mine, hoo. Jiang Erlang wanted to push her off, but Ling family clung to him like a plaster, her arms desperately wrapped around his waist. Ernie and Huzi were both stunned and didn't know how to help their father. Even the neighbors couldn't bear to watch and kindly advised, "I say, Ling family lady, you're already married, so stop pestering like this. Go home. If your husband's family finds out, it's going to be really bad." From the Ling family lady, there was no response. She just clung to Jiang Erlang and wept bitterly. "Erlang, don't abandon me. I really know I was wrong." Whimper, whimper. At that moment, a young girl's voice rang out. "Oh, how shameless. Told us you ran home, but here you are bothering a man. Did you see this, father? This woman is just despicably adaptable. Not being punished for just one day can make her grow wings." Woman from Ling family quickly turned her head, only to see her 12-year-old stepdaughter watching her with a gleeful smile. Standing next to the young girl was her current husband, Zuocheng, with a dark expression on his face as he came over. Ling family lady screamed and tried to hide behind Jiang Erlang. Zuocheng rushed forward, grabbing her hair, and brutally scolded, "I've been feeding you, clothing you, looking after you and your pickled vegetables. The moment I turn my back, you run home and start meeting men secretly. I'll kill you, you fickle-minded, stinking, depraved woman." With that, he slapped her in the face, the sound echoing loudly. Instantly, one side of the Ling family lady's face turned a deep purple. Instantly she stopped crying, covering her head, pleading desperately, "Stop hitting me, I won't dare to anymore, Zuolang, I won't dare to, let go, I'm bearing a child." Jiang Erlang turned and pulled the two children into the room, instructing them not to come out, before taking up his carrying basket and heading to South Slope. By now, the Ling family lady had been dragged away by Zuocheng, followed by a group of villagers with bowls in hand. Yingbao, who was just heading to the school, also witnessed this and silently watched for a while, then shook her head. There is no antidote for regret in this world. In the past year, despite her marriage in town, the Ling family lady didn't return to look at her children even once, let alone make shoes for Huzi and Ernie or send any clothes. Now that she said she missed and couldn't bear to part with her children, only a fool would believe it. Perhaps she heard that their uncle had built a large tile-roofed house and was making money by planting golden ears, so she started acting up. You could tell from the quality of the clothes she was wearing that her widower husband was treating her quite well. The man was only a bit old, a bit ugly, and a bit dark. Everything else was acceptable, and he was well matched with the Ling family lady. Not to boast, but Yingbao's uncle was good-looking and delicate, unlike a man in his early 30s. Now that he has recovered from his illness and his body is gradually strengthening, he looks even more youthful and robust, more handsome than their own father, and several unmarried girls in the village are secretly giving Huzi treats. Looking at the Ling family lady, however, she seemed to have aged, and her entire demeanor was old and weathered. In comparison to her past rounded beauty, she seemed like a different person. Well, what can you say? When you get something, you don't know how to cherish it. Now that you realize how good your uncle is, you want to regret it. Is there such a thing as a regret remedy in this world? When Yingbao arrived at the school, she saw that Qin Zhao was sitting with Sister Wen, both with smiles on their faces. "Sister Shu Shu, you're amazing. I can't get this text right, but as soon as you teach me, I get it." While Qin Zhao was praising Wen Shu, he caught a glance at Yingbao, his eyes full of triumph and provocation. Yingbao walked up to them, like a food-protective wolf pup, pulled Qin Shu aside, and sat down opposite Qin Zhao. She grinned, "If I teach you, I can definitely do better than Sister Wen. Do you want to try?" She and Sister Wen were both on the first track and their curriculum was more difficult than the second track, so it wasn't wrong for her to call herself Qin Zhao's senior. Qin Zhao's pretty little face gradually crumbled, her lips pouting as she looked for help from Wen Shu. "Sister Shu Shu, Wen Shu answered with a smile, "I have my own studies to do. Letting Bao teach you. Although she's young, she is still your senior. In academia, it's all about knowledge level, not age. She is more than capable of teaching you." Qin Zhao. Yingbao raised an eyebrow at him, then slammed her hand down on the 1,000-character text. "I am your second senior sister, and if I don't teach you 10 sections of text today, I'll beat your hands with a wooden ruler." Chapter 66, Chapter 66, Chapter 66, The Jiang Family Gets Rich. Chapter 66, Chapter 66, The Jiang Family Gets Rich. In the end, Qin Zhao, failing to learn the 10-verse poem, had no choice but to stretch out his hands and tightly shut his eyes under the supervision of Wen Shu and the icy gaze of Yingbao. Thwack 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 thwack. Summoning all her strength, Yingbao slapped Qin Zhao's hands 10 times, enough to bring tears to his eyes. Upon opening his eyes, his palms were red and swollen. Qin Zhao managed to suppress his tears by pouting his mouth and ran back to the classroom next door with red-rimmed eyes. After this episode, Chen Zhao never came to look for Wenshu in Class A again, avoiding Yingbao for many days. During this time, Yingbao managed to find the time to harvest her premium golden and silver ear mushrooms, sunning them thoroughly under the high autumn sun. On this rest day, Yingbao put the sun golden ear mushrooms in a clean bamboo basket, preparing to give them to her father to sell in the county town the day after tomorrow. She used the new scale her family bought to weigh them. 150 pieces of dried golden ear mushrooms totaled 4.5 pounds, while 150 pieces of dried silver ear mushrooms weighed 5 pounds and 2 ounces. She planned to keep the leftover pieces and let her father take the rest to the county town to sell. "Yingbao, what are you busy with?" When Yanmin and his wife, Xiao Zhenyang, stood outside the fence, smiling as they watched Yingbao. When Yingbao saw it was her husband, she quickly opened the entryway to their courtyard and invited them in. "What brings you here, sir?" She moved a bamboo chair for them to sit. When Yanmin flipped his robe and sat down, laughing, "I'm free and decided to take a walk with your husband." Xiao Zhenyang glanced at the few baskets of golden and silver ear mushrooms and asked, "Yingbao, are you selling these mushrooms?" Yingbao nodded, "Of course they are for sale." "Have they been designated for sale to a specific family?" Xiao Zhenyang asked again. "No, my father will take them all." When Yanmin bent down to pick up a golden ear mushroom, took a sniff, and asked, "Yingbao, how much do you sell these golden ear mushrooms per ounce?" "Last time my father sold them for 10 taels per pound," Yingbao honestly replied. 10 taels a pound, not expensive. When Yanmin asked with a smile, "Would you sell them to me?" "I'm willing to pay 12 taels per pound." Yingbao blinked her eyes and nodded vigorously, "Of course." As long as the price was right, it didn't matter who the buyer was. "Will your parents agree?" Xiao Zhenyang asked. "Of course, my parents would agree," Yingbao giggled. "How much do you want?" "I can weigh it for you right away." She wouldn't not take less money just because Wen Yanmin was her husband. Even biological brothers keep clear accounts. It wasn't like she had to beg him to buy it. "I want all of them." Wen Yanmin laughed and pointed at the silver ear mushrooms. "And how much is the silver ear mushroom per pound?" 1 tael of silver, Yingbao replied. "The last time my father took them to the county town, it was 1 tael of silver per pound." "Good, I'll take them for a tael of silver as well." When Yanmin picked up a silver ear mushroom, sniffed it, and his eyes smiled like crescents. So, Yingbao managed to sell her golden and silver ear mushrooms without even leaving the house, receiving more than 60 taels of silver. She originally wanted to keep the golden ear mushrooms residue, but when Yanmin made a broad gesture and even bought the residues, Yingbao didn't mind. She collected the silver and started to allocate the mushroom hyphae. She replanted 50 golden and 50 silver ear mushrooms in the cave and planted 100 more outside. The extra hyphae were put into new clay jars she bought, which she prepared to give to her father for distribution. Several busy days passed, and under the guidance of Jiang Sanlang, households in the village that planted golden ear mushroom also progressively harvested and sunned them. The premium golden ear mushrooms of old Jiang and his 2 sons were also sunned, each weighing over a pound. The next step was to sell them in the county town. Jiang Sanlang didn't keep any secrets. He took along his elder brother Jiang Erlang, as well as Chen Yin and Li Daiyong to the Furifeng Trading Company to sell golden ear mushrooms. Store manager Zhou Mao had been anxiously waiting a long time. When he heard from a shop assistant that Jiang Sanlang had arrived, he lost a shoe in his hurry. "Ha ha ha, brother Jiang, you are finally here." Zhou Mao laughed, picked up his shoe, ordered a servant boy to make tea, and hurried to check the carts of mushrooms himself. "How many premium products did you bring today?" He craned his neck to scan around, even picking up a piece to take a sniff. Jiang Sanlang carried over the quasi-premium products he and his older brothers and father had grown, 5 caddies of premium products in all. Zhou Mao picked up another piece and sniffed, feeling the fragrance was very light, not as strong as last time. There must be a mistake. Picking up another piece to sniff, he felt that he might be overthinking. However, as a businessman, if he had doubts, he had to voice them. Is this really a premium product? Jiang Sanlang kept his face unchanged and said, "Yes, they're indeed premium products." The premium products grown by his own little daughter had already been sold to Mr. Wen at a high price of 12 taels, so the quasi-premium products he and his father grew should be worth at least 10 taels per caddy. If Zhou Mao doesn't buy, then he would just take them back. He couldn't show weakness at this juncture. Zhou Mao frowned at Jiang Sanlang for a moment, then clucked dismissively. Whatever, just unload the goods now. The young assistant arrived early with a steelyard, weighing out the golden fungus basket by basket. A total of 52 caddies of ordinary golden fungus, 7 caddies of Schwer, 5 caddies of premium golden fungus, 3 caddies of Schwer, the assistant reported. Zhou Mao calculated on his abacus, a total of 222 taels and 500 coins. Jiang Sanlang nodded. This includes the golden fungus and Schwer grown by other households in the village. He had already calculated it once at home, and the amount was accurate. Zhou Mao was pleased, and said to Jiang Sanlang, "Brother Jiang, next time you don't need to run around. Our store manager said that we will come to you for collection, which will save you the trouble." Jiang Sanlang, okay. He didn't want to bother running back and forth anyway. "Do you want silver notes or cash silver?" Zhou Mao asked again. Jiang Sanlang shook his head, "Not silver notes, just cash silver. After all, we country folks can't identify those notes. If he got those things, he wouldn't know where to change them. If the silver shop ever disappeared, wouldn't his money be lost for nothing?" Zhou Mao shook his head, not bothering to argue with such a backwoods peasant. He ordered an assistant to bring the accountant to settle the silver money. 22 silver ingots, each of 10 taels, and another 2,500 copper coins. Chen Yin and Li Daiyong, both seeing such a pile of silver ingots for the first time, were nearly blinded. Good Lord, that's a lot of money. The Jiang family has indeed struck it rich. Returning home, Chen Yin showed the 7 taels of silver to his father. "Dad, you don't know, the golden fungus business does make money. The Jiang family made over 200 taels this time." "Goodness, you've been the village head for so many years, and you haven't made that much." Chen Sanyo glared at his second son, "You rascal. Do you think your dad makes money by being the village head?" Chen Yin giggled and said, "I was just drawing an analogy." Handing the 7 taels to his father, Chen Yin added, "This time, I'm going to grow 200 pieces. Jiang Sanlang says this is the last chance to grow golden fungus this year. We have to act quickly, otherwise, once it frosts, the fungus won't grow." Chen Dafei, standing on the side, was unhappy. "What do you mean, second brother? If you're going to grow 200 pieces, how many will my younger brother and I grow? The golden fungus spawn could only be split from the previous fungus mycelium. If you wanted bigger fungus, a lump of mycelium could at most be split into 3 or 4 portions. If the second brother used up 200 portions, would that mean he and his younger brother wouldn't get even 200 portions combined?" Chen Sanyo couldn't stand it when his 3 sons started squabbling and immediately interjected, "Enough. Grow them together. I'm not dead yet. You brothers are arguing over such petty things. Aren't you ashamed?" The oldest Chen boy closed his mouth huffily. Chen Yin, however, was not upset. He immediately took his wife and 10-year-old son to divide up the fungal seeds. He was enthusiastic because he was acting out of selfishness, wanting his wife and son to learn how to grow and care for the fungus as soon as possible. Soon enough, he and his older and younger brothers would have to split the household. By that time, if his family all knew how to cultivate golden fungus and Schwer, wouldn't their future be bright? Maybe he'd be like Jiang Sanlang, making hundreds of taels per year. Haha, just the thought made him immensely happy. Wham! A porcelain bottle flew over from next door, almost hitting Chen Yin's head. Chen Yin shouted in outrage, "Who threw that? How can you just throw things like that? Can you afford to pay if you hurt someone?" An angry shout and crying came from next door, along with chastising from the clan leader. Things are turned upside down. A fight breaks out over some fungus. You're regressing in your ways. Chapter 67, Chapter 67, Chapter 67, The Kid is Missing. Chapter 67, Chapter 67, The Kid is Missing. It turned out that the gold mushrooms planted by Chief Chen's youngest daughter-in-law were sold, more than 3 coins for 50 mushrooms. More than 3 coins is equivalent to more than 3,000, which can buy 6 or 7 stone of rice, enough for a family of 5 to eat for half a year. Earned so easily in just over a month, without interfering with farm work, who wouldn't want such a good deal? So Han Nianyang, Chief Chen's second daughter-in-law, said to the 4 sisters-in-law, "These 50 mushrooms can be propagated, right? I don't want much, just give me 100 plants. The fourth sister-in-law, Mrs. Xiao, was of course unwilling, and went to complain to her mother-in-law, Mrs. Tang. When Mrs. Tang heard it, she was furious, and came over to scold the second daughter-in-law. How ruthless can your heart be? Can't you stand it if our mother and daughter are doing well? She was not the biological mother of Han Miaonyang, she was Chief Chen Fu's second wife, and she had only one son, Chen Zhu, in her life, and a daughter who had already been married off. But Chen Erlang and Chen Dayong were the sons of Chen Fu's ex-wife, so the eldest and the second daughter-in-law always disdained this stepmother, sometimes even arguing with her, making the relationship between in-laws is not like it should be. The second daughter-in-law sneered, "Listen to you talk, how come you can't stand us prospering? Father didn't say we can't ask for the seeds of the gold mushrooms." When Mrs. Tang heard that, she was furious and immediately went to confront her husband. "Tell me, aren't those gold mushrooms given to your youngest daughter-in-law? Why does the eldest and second daughter-in-law also want to plant them? She is Chief Chen's second wife, and she has only one son, Chen Sailang, who was sent to enlist by Chief Chen. This is a heart-wrenching affair for her." Joyful that the old man finally had a conscience and found a livelihood for the young daughter-in-law, the eldest and second daughters-in-law became jealous and caused problems incessantly. Chief Chen took a sip from his tea bowl and said lightly, "What's the big deal?" Chief Chen took a sip from his tea bowl and said lightly, "What's the big deal? Those gold mushrooms have mycelium, right? It's no problem to share a little." "What?" Mrs. Tang sat on her chair, slapped her leg, and burst into tears. "You monster! I was blind to marry you. Oh my God, I can't live anymore. Do you Chen family want to push us to death? My poor Chen Zhu, not only did he go to soldier for his nephews, his wife and children are also bullied at home." Chief Chen's forehead veins jumped and he slapped the table in anger. "Enough. Who's bullying Chen Zhu's wife and children?" Mrs. Tang leaped up and pointed at Chief Chen Fu and cursed, "You old fool," saying they're not being bullied. As soon as Chen Zhu's wife gets her hands on 3 coins, someone can't stand her being better off. Is it that only the eldest and the second are your biological sons, and is Chen Zhu perhaps adopted? Nonsense. Chen Fu was so angry that his beard trembled. At this moment, the second daughter-in-law, Han Miaonyang, cynically said from outside the window, "Whoever is oppressing should die immediately." "Oh, only the youngest daughter-in-law has the right to plant the gold mushrooms, we don't have the right." Upon hearing this, Mrs. Tang was enraged, picked up a vase and ran out of the house, throwing it at Han Miaonyang. However, she used too much strength and threw the vase right over the low wall, almost hitting Chen Yin's head in Chen Sanyo's house next door. Let's not talk about the chaos in the house of clan leader Chen. Li Dayong and his brother Li Eryong are overjoyed. They planted a total of 200 gold mushrooms and 50 snow mushrooms and made a total of 15 taels of silver. 15 taels, they had never been able to save that much after working for more than 10 years. "Brother, let's plant 400 this time." Li Eryong held the silver ingot and could not bear to move his hand. He had never touched a silver ingot in his life. He never expected he would one day own one himself, no, 2 silver ingots. The blind old father asked, "Son, let daddy feel what silver feels like." Li Eryong put the 2 silver ingots in his father's hand. "Feel them." The old man Li, touching a big and a small silver ingot, burst into tears. Li Dayong and Li Eryong were taken back, and quickly asked, "Father, why are you crying?" "Well, I can die happy now." Old man Li rubbed the silver with his old face and cried out, "It's a pity that your mother died early. If she knew that one day her sons would be so successful, she would have held on for a few more years." Li Dayong and Li Eryong looked at each other, sighed, and told old man Li, "Dad, when we have planted the gold mushrooms, we want to go to North Mountain to pay our respects to mother and give her the good news." "Okay, let me come with you when that time comes." Old man Li wiped his eyes and said, "It's been many years since I last saw your mother." Just after the Ghost Festival in July, the sow in the house of the eldest brother of the Jiang family gave birth to piglets. The sow had given birth to 8 piglets in one go, which greatly delighted Uncle Jiang. "Erlang, Sanlang, when the time comes, each of you take one to raise. The rest will be sold." Jiang Erlang and Jiang Sanlang both shook their heads. "No, we don't have time to raise them." Their households were busy. Their children had to go to school, where would they find the spare time to raise pigs? Uncle Jiang scratched his head and sighed, "In that case, give 2 to the boy on the south slope to raise. By next New Year, they'll be ready for slaughter. The rest can be sold once they're a month old. Nowadays, everyone is busy trying to make big money, and no one has the time to raise pigs. The only one idle is Jiang Quan, who spends his days bird trapping and rabbit hunting. Evening Bao, who's just over 3 years old, knows to plant golden ears to earn pocket money. Only that boy doesn't have the sense, focused only on selling water chestnuts. He even claims that he just loves selling stuff and doesn't like planting golden ears. Now, aside from Yuan Bao, Huzi, and the twins who are still clueless, even Danny and Ernie have started planting golden ears and snow ears, saying that they want to earn their own money and spend it as they like, just like Bao does. With time passing by swiftly, the piglets soon reached 1 month old. The sow's milk was abundant, and she raised the 8 piglets into round and smooth bundles that were a joy to behold. Among them, the happiest one was Wan Hangin. Every day he would secretly come over to feed the sow, Ahua, and seeing the suckling piglets under Ahua's belly gave him great satisfaction. But one day, when he came to feed them again, he found that 2 of the piglets were missing. What happened? Wan Hangin hastily counted twice. Indeed, 2 were missing. How are you taking care of them? He couldn't help but scold Ahua, 2 have gone missing and you don't even know. Ahua let out a couple of grunts at him and lay there without paying him any attention. Feeling frustrated, Wan Hangin went home and had a sleepless night. When he came to see the next day, there was only 1 piglet left under Ahua's belly. Wan Hangin panicked and tried to grab the piglet, but to his surprise, Ahua jumped up and attacked him. Have you gone mad? Wan Hangin could only retreat behind a wall, stomping his foot in annoyance but daring not to go back in. The more he thought about it, the sadder he became. He ran home and complained to his mother, "Mother, please go save your grandchild. It's about to get stolen by someone." Woo, woo. Xiao Zhenyang's hand, which was holding a pen, trembled as she asked, thinking she had misheard, "What did you say?" "Your grandson is about to be stolen. Please go and buy it back," Wan Hangin sobbed, heartbroken. He had worked so hard to raise the piglets, and now there was only 1 left. He was sure that tomorrow, even this last one would be gone if he didn't do something. My grandson. Xiao Zhenyang's face fell. What nonsense are you talking about? I'm not speaking. Nonsense. It's true. Wan Hangin stuttered, it's in the pigsty at Zhang's. Xiao Zhenyang stood up, "All right, lead me to take a look." So, mother and son went to the Zhang's, beside the pigsty. When Xiao Zhenyang saw her grandson, her expression was calm. She glanced at her son and asked, "Are you sure this is your child?" Wan Hangin nodded earnestly, recounted the events of that day, and defended himself at the end. One didn't mean to. Xiao Zhenyang's mouth twitched, and she suppressed her laughter, saying only, "Then wait here, I will go buy it from the Jiang family." Chapter 68, Chapter 68, Chapter 68, Too ashamed to show one's face 1. Chapter 68, Chapter 68, Too ashamed to show one's face 1. Jiang Dalong was somewhat surprised when Lady Wen came to buy a piglet. He eventually sold it to her for 200 coins less, taking a total of 600 coins. Xiao Zhenyang carried the piglet and son home with her in silence the entire way. Once inside the house, she handed the piglet to her son, saying, "Let mother teach you what it is to be a parent, what it is to be a son." And thus, after listening to his mother's discourse on medicine for 2 hours, Wan Hangin finally comprehended that he was not, in fact, Ahua's child's father. Looking at the piglet ensconced in his embrace, he began to feel a sense of embarrassment. However, as it was a piglet he had watched grow, he decided he would still adopt it. It was a black and white piglet with a cute white spiral on its forehead. "You shall be called Spiral from now on." Wan Hangin patted the small pig's head and let out a quiet sigh. The nanny came over and smiled, "Young master, let the nanny find a place for the piglet. You just check on it when you have time." Wan Hangin nodded and handed the piglet to the nanny. "Nanny, find it a warm space, spread out some straw, don't let it get cold." The days and nights were cooling down now, and without its mother pig, the piglet would certainly get cold at night. "Rest assured, I'll create a straw nest for it placed behind the stove. During the day we'll move it outside. How does that sound?" "Good." Wan Hangin took one final look at the piglet, and then turned to go back into the house. He must study hard, never to be foolish again. This matter must not be known to anyone, especially that little girl Bao, or he would never have the face to see people again in his lifetime. Xiao Zhenyang was so amused by her son's antics she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Finally, she returned to writing her letter in good spirits. When Shu asked, "Mother, when will father return?" Her father Wen Yanmin was sent out to deliver some goods to Yuzhou, which concerned her. Xiao Zhenyang gave it some thought before saying, "He's likely to be back in 2 months." Yuzhou was far away. Even if he traveled by carriage, the daily distance covered would be around 100 miles, and the journey of 1,000 miles would take 10 days or so. If the weather was extreme, it would take even longer. It would take at least 2 months for him to go there and back. If only she knew if that golden ear mushroom medicine was any help for those suffering from lung illnesses. In the imperial palace at the capital city, the empress summoned imperial physician Wen Yanpei of the Imperial Medical Bureau to her residence in Zhaohedian. She was adorned with a phoenix crown embedded with 8 precious jewels and dressed in bright red clothes with golden dragon and phoenix patterns, complete with an 8-meter-long skirt. This majestic attire exhibited a wealth of prosperity and pride. Her demeanor was commanding, even when she didn't express anger. "Dr. Wen, tell me honestly, how is the condition of my son's illness?" "I won't blame you." Wen Yanpei's body shivered like a sieve as he tremulously responded, "The prescription that I, your humble subject, made for His Highness is just missing one medicinal ingredient. As long as that ingredient is delivered, His Highness will surely recover after some more time." The Empress became a little more reassured and said in a gentler tone, "From where are you procuring these ingredients that it has taken so long? If need be, I can get the Ministry of War to dispatch a courier to make a quick delivery." Wen Yanpei thought to himself that this was all his father's doing, and he genuinely did not know where his old man had found the ingredients. But he couldn't say that his father was helping him find these ingredients. Otherwise, he would seem like a useless person to the Empress. "Your Grace, the ingredient was discovered by a local hermit who frequently travels. Therefore, we can only confirm when the ingredient will arrive once the hermit has been located." The Empress's face darkened slightly, her voice carrying a hint of anger. "You'll have to hurry then. Make sure your family contacts that hermit as quickly as possible to have the ingredient sent back." "Yes, I will dispatch more people to hurry the process as soon as I get back. Please rest assured, Your Grace, as soon as the ingredient is delivered, His Highness will undoubtedly recover." "That's good." The Empress picked up the teacup on the table to her side and said lightly, "In that case, you may leave, Dr. Wen. I await your good news." "Yes, I shall take my leave." Wen Yanpei bowed, took a few steps back, then turned to leave. Once out of the imperial city, Wen Yanpei wiped the sweat off his forehead and hastily boarded his own carriage. Back at his mansion, he called for the chief steward. "Has there been any news from my father?" Wen Yanpei asked. Previously, his father Wen Jingyan had sent him 2 ounces of dried golden mushrooms, instructing him to simmer them with ginseng and donkey hide gelatin to be given to the 10-year-old prince. After the prince had taken it, his complexion improved. He slept deeply at night, his coughing and wheezing symptoms greatly alleviated, and he even ate half a bowl of porridge the next day. But the dried golden mushrooms ran out in just a few days. Wen Yanpei was anxious, repeatedly urging his father to send more. However, his father replied that obtaining such a thing was not easy, the next batch was uncertain, and asked him to be patient. He had been waiting for over a month now. The prince's condition had relapsed, and both the emperor and empress were furious. Wen Yanpei was on pins and needles, fearing that he might be beheaded any day now. The chief steward bowed and reported, "Master, word has been sent over that the medicinal herbs will reach Yuzhou Prefecture in a few days. Please wait a few more days when the eldest master will deliver them back to the capital." Wen Yanpei was overjoyed. "Really? My father said so." "Chief steward, yes, the old master asked you to remain calm and wait for the eldest master to discuss things in detail with you upon his return." "All right, you can leave." Wen Yanpei waved him away. He paced back and forth in his study, both glad and anxious, wishing he could get the medicine now. At that moment, his wife Lady Guo brought their daughter Yurong into the study. In her hands, the young girl held a box of freshly made pastries. "My lord, please try this Poria Coco's date paste cake that Yurong has just made," she offered. Wen Yanpei glanced at the tray of food in his daughter's hand. He had no appetite and waved her off. Put it down. I'll try it later. His younger daughter Yurong was 10 years old this year. She was beautiful from a young age, and her beauty was even more apparent now that she was older. The reason Wen Yanpei volunteered to treat the prince was partly due to personal gain. He once thought that if he could cure the prince, his daughter might catch the eye of the empress, and one day she might be selected as the prince's principal wife. By then, he would be related to the imperial family. The future emperor would owe him a favor, and the Wen family would flourish under his generation. But curing the young prince's ailment turned out to be a tremendous challenge. He exhausted all his skills but could not rid the child of his illness entirely. His only choice was to ask for assistance from his father, Wen Jingyan, who had retired to their native Yuzhou. He thought that with the deep foundation of medical knowledge of the Wen family, if he wasn't capable, his father wouldn't just stand by and do nothing. Once his father intervened, curing a minor lung disease would be effortless. But the prince's condition kept relapsing, and his body grew weaker, to the point where he couldn't even get out of bed. The emperor and empress were furious. Even the father of the empress, the Duke of Qi, pointed at his nose in anger, threatening that if he couldn't cure the prince, he would be charged with deceiving the emperor and his entire family would be punished. Only then did Wen Yanpei truly panic and sent another urgent letter to his father. His father was also at a loss, scouring all corners for folk remedies. Eventually, he heard of a remote mountain village where a resident seemed to have a cure for lung diseases. According to his father, an old disciple of his who he hadn't seen for decades had set up a pharmacy in the rural town. An advanced case of lung disease had come to him, and the patient had actually been cured within a month. "Father, these cakes are best when eaten hot," his daughter said, opening the box and smiling. "I noticed that you seemed quite stressed recently with dark circles under your eyes, so I decided to learn how to make some." Wen Yanpei sighed softly, and took a piece of cake. "Master, disaster has struck." A servant rushed into the study, scrambling and panting. "The imperial guards. They've broken in." Wen Yanpei was startled, and the cake in his hand fell to the ground. Chapter 69, Chapter 69, Chapter 69, Narrow-minded. Chapter 69, Chapter 69, Narrow-minded. The imperial guards stormed in with force, swarming every corner of Wen Yanpei's residence like a tidal wave. Wen Yanpei's face was deathly pale. He disregarded his unconscious wife and panic-stricken daughter, and hurriedly ran to assess the situation. He saw the empress's brother, Xiao Weiliang, walking among his guards with a smile on his face and his hands behind his back. He was strolling leisurely, looking around the scenery of the Wen residence as if enjoying a garden tour. "Commander Xiao, what is the meaning of this sudden intrusion into my home?" Wen Yanpei stepped forward to bow in greeting before questioning. Xiao Weiliang looked at him with a contemptuous expression. "Imperial Physician 1, you've got quite the nerve, daring to deceive His Majesty and take the life of the prince as a joke." He tidied his sleeves and chuckled softly. "His Majesty ordered us to take you to the Sky Prison and await trial by the Ministry of Justice." A buzzing sound filled Wen Yanpei's head. He felt as if the sounds around him were getting further away. How can this be? I had just returned from the palace and His Majesty had ordered me to hasten the preparation of the medicine. Xiao Weiliang sneered. "I am merely following orders. I know nothing of the rest. If Imperial Physician 1 has anything to say, you can explain yourself at the public court of the Ministry of Justice." With that, he waved his hand and 2 imperial guards quickly advanced, one on each side of Wen Yanpei, locking his neck and wrists with chains. "No. Commander Xiao, please listen to me. The Empress herself did ask me to hasten the medicine." No, the ingredients have already been sent. They should arrive in a few days. I swear that I can cure the prince." Wen Yanpei frantically repeated his explanation. "Commander Xiao, I did not deceive His Majesty. I genuinely can cure the prince. Please report to Teacher Xiao on my behalf, considering our past relations." "Enough, I don't want to hear your rubbish." Xiao Weiliang curtly interrupted him and ordered the imperial guards, "Gag him." One of the guards bent down, took off Wen Yanpei's shoes, pulled off his cotton socks, balled them up and stuffed them into Wen Yanpei's mouth. Wen Yanpei struggled desperately. 50 miles away, when Hengchuan was riding his horse at full speed towards Beijing. His several horse-riding servants were following him closely, all of them were at the end of their wits. Along the way, everyone had developed friction burns on their thighs. They didn't even have time to apply the medicine. They couldn't understand why their young master was in such a hurry. Meanwhile, amidst the turbulent storm ravaging the Wen family from afar, Dongchen village in Chuanha town was experiencing a tremendous harvest. However, this harvest was not of grains but a significant yield of golden and snow mushrooms. Now, among the 28 households in Dongchen village, 10 of them were growing golden and snow mushrooms. These included the households of Wang Kuo, Li Daiyong, Li Eryong, Wang Ershan, the 3 sons of clan leader Chen Sanyo, and the Chen clan leader's family. There were also a few other households in the village facing difficulties. They had bought mushroom seeds on credit from Jiang Sanlang, promising to pay him back when the golden mushrooms were sold. This was the last harvest of the autumn, and everyone was filled with anticipation. Those villagers who didn't manage to reserve seeds last time were now itching to try. They waited secretly at Jiang Sanlang's doorway, and when they saw him returning, they immediately surrounded him. "Sanlang, it's my turn this time, isn't it? I made a deal with you before, brother Jiang San, it's my turn now. It should be my turn this time. And me, I've been waiting for 2 rounds." The villagers were all speaking simultaneously, fearing that they might miss out on the mushroom seeds. Jiang Sanlang said helplessly, "The weather is cold now, and I can't give you the seeds yet. If they are not properly stored, they won't sprout next year. How about this, you all queue up and I'll distribute them in order when it's time." The villagers nodded in agreement. "All right, we'll do as you say." Everyone was bustling around trying to figure out their order, and it almost started a fight over who would be first. Ing Bao peeked out from a window and counted the number of people. Wow, there were more than 20 people, each representing a household, so, more than 20 households. With this many households wanting mushroom seeds, if each household needs 50 plants, that would be over 1,000 plants. If her father was to give away all his mushroom seeds, they probably wouldn't be enough to go around. Ing Bao counted the terracotta jars she collected in her cave, 30 in total, filled with fungal spores. She estimated a yield of around 400 golden ears and 200 snow ears. That was still too few. Of course, these premium mushrooms she cultivated weren't for the villagers, but for her own use. She wanted to improve the grade of her own golden ears and snow ears, and let her father hand the regular variety over to the villagers for cultivation. That way, even if an increasing number of people grew golden ears and snow ears, the selling price of her own batch wouldn't be affected. It seemed that she would have to cultivate another batch of premium ones. Only then would there be enough to replace the stock her father, uncle, and their families were using by next spring. The September sun was still warm, and the weather had started to dry up. The autumn taxation was mostly complete, the winter wheat had been sown, and the paddy fields had been turned over once. They were now waiting for the winter snow to kill off the pests in the soil. Typically, it indicated that the busy farming period had come to an end, and the locals could finally relax. Only a handful of homes would go up the mountain to dig up kudzu root that was 3 or 4 years old, and bring it back to be crushed into powder. However, the villagers of Dongchen village were exceptionally busy. Each household was building bamboo sheds, using stone mortars to mash rice husks, wheat bran, and wood chips. They were working round the clock. Carts loaded with terracotta jars were hauled in, one by one, and distributed to every household. Many households had bamboo drying racks set up at their front doors. On these racks were clean reed mats, and on the mats were yellow mushrooms, their golden colors dazzling, causing neighboring villagers to stop and stare in fascination. "What are you drying there?" Village chief of West Village, Chen Changsheng, came over, hands clasped behind his back, asking village chief of East Village, Chen Sanyo. Chen Sanyo, while flipping over his golden ears, didn't raise his head and responded, "Mushrooms." Chen Changsheng retorted, "I know they're mushrooms. I'm asking why you're growing them. Can you make money from them?" He was deliberately playing dumb. Chen Sanyo rolled his eyes at him, "If we can't make money from it, we can eat them ourselves." He had always been annoyed with Chen Changsheng since they were little. Although they were of the same Chen clan, they were distant cousins and rarely interacted. They would pass each other without even greeting. The reason? It was all because both of them were smitten with a pretty young maiden from another village, but Chen Changsheng won her over. In reality, it wasn't a case of winning her over. The young maiden hadn't exchanged more than a few words with Qin Sanyo, and she wasn't close with Qin Chongqing either. What infuriated Qin Sanyo was that Qin Chongqing took the underhand route and secretly found the maiden's older brother, telling him that a boy from Qin village had taken a fancy to his sister. Needless to say, the older brother was immediately filled with rage. So, one day, Qin Sanyo was cornered by the maiden's brother and received a couple of hard punches to the face. Of course, it didn't go well for Qin Chongqing either. The maiden's brother warned him to stay at least 10 feet away from his sister, otherwise he would break Qin Chongqing's legs. Every time Qin Sanyo remembered this incident, he felt a surge of anger. But back then he was only 9 years old, 2 years younger than Qin Chongqing, and knew he couldn't beat him. And he wasn't as cunning as Qin Chongqing, unable to think of any way to get back at him. After they grew up and married their respective wives, the incident was forgotten. However, since then, it had been a constant thorn in Qin Sanyo's side. Every time he thought about it, he felt irritated. In his dreams, he wished he could give Qin Chongqing a good beating. Qin Chongqing shrugged his mouth and glanced at Qin Sanyo as if looking at a fool. Since when did your household become so poor that you need to use mushroom as food? I see there are several hundred of them here. Would it be enough to feed your family for 2 months? None of your goddamn business. Qin Sanyo responded irritably. If you have nothing better to do, return to West Village. Our village doesn't need your concern, better to keep an eye on Qin Ergu from your village. Qin Chongqing brushed off his comment without getting angry, hands behind his back and said, Don't think I don't know this was started by Jiang Sanlang from your village. His family is getting rich off this. No one in West Village is blind. Qin Sanyo retorted, You certainly act like a blind fool. If you're so aware, why are you bugging me here? Isn't it because I can't find him around? Qin Chongqing picked up a golden ear and looked at it, then leisurely said, We are from the same village, why would you hide good things? We are still blood-related brothers after all, Qin is the common character of our names. Don't be so petty, you need to change this old habit of yours. Chapter 70, Chapter 70, Chapter 70, Someone jumps into the river 1. Chapter 70, Chapter 70, Someone jumps into the river 1. What did you say, Qin Dalian? Who are you calling petty? Qin Sanyo instantly flared up at this, taking off a shoe and hurling it at him, Bugger off. Stop putting on a show in front of me. This unfounded comment stirred up his old grudges, fanning the flames of his anger. Damn Qin Dalian. That bald-headed jerk. Ignoring him wasn't enough, now he had come to his door to mock him. Seeing Qin Sanyo suddenly lose his temper, Qin Chongqing knew that he was about to go berserk and start hitting people again, so he quickly turned and ran. He only dared to shout insults back when he was far away. You old geezer. You have the audacity to throw a shoe at me while we're just having a conversation. Just wait and see. I'll complain to the clan leader about your insolence and how you've become unreasonable with age. Absolutely unreasonable. Of course, Qin Chongqing didn't actually go to see the clan leader since the clan leader was Qin Sanyo's older brother. Approaching him would just result in further agony for himself. As he stomped back home, he ran into old Qin, and immediately began to complain. Can you believe that, Qin Sanyo? I was just talking to him, and the bastard threw his stinking shoe at me. Who am I doing this for? The East Village does nothing productive, just messing around, and it's making our villagers restless that they can't even focus on farming. This is unacceptable. I'm going to complain to Li Jing. He needs to step in. Old Qin glanced at him, nonchalantly saying, Then you should hurry, otherwise you'll miss your lunch. Qin Chongqing, everyone's being so nasty today, just like Qin Ergu. They're all so insufferable. Humph. He snorted and turned to leave. It felt like he was caught between a rock and a hard place. Old Qin paid him no mind and continued on his way home. He still remembered how this guy had been selfish back in the day, which had caused him to get beaten. Now, every time the weather gets bad, his butt still hurts. How could he have time to listen to others whine, while he had his own problems to worry about? His second son failed the college entrance exam again, and old Qin was so dejected that he lost his appetite. Before he even got to his front door, he heard crying and yelling from his home. As soon as he stepped inside, he saw his daughter-in-law, from the Han family, brutally beating her child with a bamboo stick. Chen Wan, his granddaughter, was already 9 years old. She was old enough to be betrothed, yet her mother was still scolding and abusing her. She wasn't afraid that the child would be damaged and not be able to marry into a good family. That's enough. Are you done yet? For the first time in his life, old Chen screamed at his second daughter-in-law, look at what you've done to Wan. What the hell is your problem? The Han woman was startled by old Chen's sudden rebuke and quickly stopped her actions. Unappeased, old Chen continued, Han, I'm not one to speak ill of you, but just look at what you've done to our home. The neighbors look down on us because of your misbehavior. Can you not disrupt the peace for one day? How is our second son supposed to go out in public or focus on his studies with all this? The Han woman didn't dare to talk back. She tossed the bamboo stick and went into her room. Chen Wan sobbed for a while, then ran out of the courtyard. Old Chen didn't interfere and returned to his own room, feeling frustrated. Feng was sitting on the heated bed, spinning cotton into thread. She glanced at him and asked, what's wrong today? You've actually started scolding people. Old Chen sat down on the edge of the heated bed, slid off his shoes, sat cross-legged on the bed, and lifted his small teapot to drink from it. He pondered for a moment, then suddenly asked, do you think the kid in the Jiang family from East Village is really our second son's? Feng kept on spinning the cotton without lifting her head, who knows? Wasn't it you who said you wouldn't get involved? Why are you suddenly bringing this up now? Old Chen took another sip of tea and snapped his mouth shut. They say the Jiang family in the East Village has struck it rich, first catching a big fish, then growing some sort of golden ears, and now they have come up with this divine gourd. Even people from other villages are coming to see it. Do you finally believe now? Feng suddenly perked up, craning her neck. I've seen the divine gourd too. It's just a shame I couldn't touch it. They say that you'll have good luck if you touch it. Look at the poor people in East Village, they're all so spirited now. I told our second son to touch it too, but he refused. Ah, and now there's no chance to touch it, the Jiang family has sold the divine gourd. Humph, they only care about money, even willing to sell something that was gifted by an immortal. Old Chen stroked his beard, deep in thought. What do you think, if we were to acknowledge that kid as our own, would our second son's chances at passing the college entrance exam be guaranteed? That's the truth. Feng family slapped her thigh. We should have brought her back a long time ago. To give away a good fairy child like that, Han family, I tell you, she's nothing but trouble, never does anything right. She finally gives birth to a useful one, and she throws her away. Our second son married her, and he sure took a big unlucky dive. Enough. Chen Laoshuan glared at his old wife. Be careful with your tongue, you say too much. Feng family moved away from the spinning wheel, got off the brick bed, patted her clothes and said, I'll go ask Han family where she gave that child away years ago. Chen Laoshuan remained silent, just holding his teapot and pondering. Feng family walked to the door of the second room, calling out loudly, Han family, come out, I need to talk to you. Only after a while did Han family lift the curtain and step out of the room. What's the matter? Feng family gave her daughter-in-law a glance, pushed past her and went into the room. Chen Chongping was sitting by the desk, copying the Book of Rites, and did not pay any attention to the arrival of his old mother. Feng family took a seat on a chair to the side, glanced at the daughter-in-law who followed her in and said, now that both of you are here, I want to ask, is the lost girl that Jiang Sanlang picked up in East Village ours? Chen Chongping furrowed his eyebrows, put down his brush, turned around and looked at his mother. Mother, why do you ask this now? I'll say it once again, the child that the Jiang family found has nothing to do with us. Feng family's mouth twitched slightly, then she turned her head to ask the second daughter-in-law, do you think the same? Han family quietly glanced at her husband, gathering her courage to say, Mother, why don't we go to the Jiang family's place and see for ourselves? Han family. Chen Chongping got angry, suddenly stood up, overturning the chair. Don't you have any shame? I certainly do. He then said to Feng family, Mother, can't you stay calm? How am I supposed to study with all this commotion? He had failed the court examination for several years in a row, and he was extremely frustrated. Although he had changed several academies to study, his progress was minimal. So he decided to study at home and put off going to the county academy for a while. To his dismay, there was no peace at home, either. It was either children crying or adults arguing, and now they were bringing up the child that was lost years ago. Every time he heard about it, he felt as uncomfortable as if he had swallowed a fly, as if the deepest, most hidden, most fearful, and most regretful secret in his heart was being dug up, leaving him nowhere to hide. Seeing her son's strong resistance to this matter, Feng family didn't dare to say anything more and got up to leave. Han family followed her out. The two women looked at each other, each understanding what the other meant. When they stepped outside, Feng family asked, Han family, what do you think? Is that child really ours? Han family nodded slightly. I think she looks like ours, mother. Why don't we quietly go and see? We won't let my husband know. Over the past 3 years, there had been no movement in her belly, which made Han family increasingly anxious. If it wasn't for the scandal caused by Chen Erge's wife last time, she would have wanted to sneak to the Jiang family's place and take the child back. Every time she mentioned adoption to her husband, he would immediately lose his temper, giving her the cold shoulder for days. Today, her mother-in-law suddenly brought it up, and it hit right where Han family wanted. Let's settle on this. We too will find time to visit the Jiang family. If the child is not ours, we won't wrong them. Feng family smoothed her hair, and then said to her daughter-in-law, Han family, don't say I didn't warn you, stop angering Ergu. His head hurts from all the daily noise, how is he supposed to study properly? This time, Han family was very obedient, bowing her head in acquiescence. Understand, mother. Disaster. Someone jumped into the river. Faintly, the cries of the villagers could be heard in the distance. Someone come quickly. Help. Who jumped into the river? A villager emerged from their home. We should go and see, seems like a child jumped into the river. Oh dear, whose child could it be, so unwilling to live? A few villagers hurried towards the source of the cries. Han family and Feng family glanced in that direction but didn't seem to care much and turned to go back home. Part 5 of the series ends here. Thank you for watching and listening. If you find it interesting, please give us a like, a comment and a subscription so that we have the motivation to make the next videos.